finished reading over it.
Scott, was that you? Thank you. Everybody. Now that all the council members are present, I call to order the June 4th meeting of the City of West Sacramento City Council, the City of West Sacramento Redevelopment Agency and Finance Authority. We will begin with the land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that the land on which we live, work, learn, and commune is the original homelands of the indigenous people of West Sacramento, who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We acknowledge and we thank the original inhabitants who have occupied, maintained, and secured this place, and who still exist on this land. We respect and celebrate the many diverse indigenous peoples still connected to this land on which we gather. And I would like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and we will have Ms. Ana Domek come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Domek. The council met in closed session this evening on the agenda. You'll see the information on the agenda. Mr. City Attorney, would you please provide a report?
Yes, ma'am. Council met in closed session for the items identified on the agenda. No reportable action was taken.
All right, thank you. As is noted on our agenda, City Council is prohibited by state law from discussing or taking any action on items that are brought under item 1 and for public comment, but it provides an opportunity for a public forum. The public is given an opportunity at this time to address City Council on issues not listed on the agenda. We do ask that anyone wishing to address the council on this or any other item this evening to please fill out a request to speak card and to bring it to the clerk. And we accept the request to speak cards up to the conclusion of the reading of the staff report on any particular agenda item. Once the staff report has been read and we open the item up for public comment, the clerk will announce your name for you to walk up to the podium. And now in front of the clerk, there is a timer to ensure that everyone has a chance to be heard. We ask that all comments be limited to 3 minutes. Also in front of the clerk is an analog flip chart which indicates which agenda item the council is currently considering. We also recognize that for some, speaking in public can cause anxiety, so we request that there be no applause or boos or catcalls or other demonstrations. Furthermore, so that we may maintain a civil discourse, here in the chambers, we ask that those in attendance and those who address the City Council abide by the code of conduct posted and not speak in loud, threatening, offensive, abusive, or other disrespectful language that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting. Now, this brings us to agenda item 1 on presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of the council. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
Yes, ma'am. Hussein Elati.
That call. Hello, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Councilwoman. I'm here to represent West Sac Soccer Club. I spoke before the Parks and Recs Commission and Intergenerational Services Commission last night. I've been a coach with the club since 2016. It's crazy because the first group of kids that I coached, those boys have almost all graduated. I think all but 1 or 2 of them. I think they might be graduating tonight. Those players are now going on to work, to go to trade schools, to go to college. Some of them are reffing now. Some of them volunteer for the club. I hope some of them coach. I'm coaching now my second team. When we started, they were 8 or 9, and I hope we can work with them until they're also graduating from high school. I think in general, our club, and I mean all sports groups have positive impacts in the city. I came because I wanted to talk about one of our biggest constraints, which is fields, and I've come and talked about that several times. Bright Park is undergoing reconstruction, which is great. We're super excited about that. It's not going to be the fix for every issue and problem. It's still not going to fix a lot of our field needs. The city and the club are in conversations about when the construction starts. How do we find other opportunities in the city? And, you know, even though I think we're per capita under where we should be in terms of field spaces, I think there are opportunities, and I'm excited because I think having the discussions with the city, we're going to find fixes and spaces that maybe we're not using, and I'm hoping that after Bright finishes, that those spaces remain open. That said, I just have the sense that a lot of groups have established dedicated fields, and we don't. In the spring, we're told that we don't have priority. Other groups have priority, and even though we have 1,000 kids, you know, we have 200 kids who play 8 to 10 months out of the year. They play competitive and they play year-round, and my request was just, can we get Summerfield, which is not a huge park, to be a dedicated soccer field? Because we don't, you know, we try to go get the high school, certain groups get it, and we get kicked out. And we're told in the spring other groups have priorities. So that's a major challenge for us. We only expect demand for soccer to increase. We're coming into a World Cup year, so I'm sure there's going to be more fervor about soccer. And I think, you know, I've asked a lot of questions about statistics and programs and, you know, what's the demand? And I think I'm going to, at this point, like, just submit information requests to the city to ask about statistics, because, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are, but anecdotally, I feel like soccer is a very popular sport in the city. And I think while all sports should be encouraged, like, we should grow with demand. So that's my comment. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Hossein. I entirely agree with you, and I'd like to meet with you after with staff together.
We have no additional requests to speak on this item.
All right, thank you so much, Madam Clerk. Next, we have 2 presentations under the City Manager's Office. And Mayor Pro Tem Sulpicio Ho will present the proclamation of the West Sacramento City Council recognizing June 2025 as Pride Month, which will be received by Reverend Scott Hill. I'd like to come up to the podium, and Mayor Pro Tem would read the proclamation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Welcome to He, She, They, Slay. Happy Pride Month, one of the most joyous times of year. Thank you for being here, Reverend Hill. I have a proclamation of the City Council in front of me designating June 2025 as Pride Month. I'll read the proclamation, give you an opportunity to speak, and then open it up for my colleagues to share a few words, and then we'll take a picture together with anybody who's joined us tonight for tonight's proclamation. Proclamation of the City Council, City of West Sacramento, designating June 2025 as Pride Month. Whereas the City of West Sacramento stands in solidarity with lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersexual, asexual community, affirming the rights of all individuals to equality and freedom from discrimination. Whereas we recognize the intrinsic worth of every person, regardless of age, gender identity, race, color, religion, marital status, national origin, sexual orientation, or physical disabilities, deserving fair treatment and respect. And whereas West Sacramento embraces diversity as a cornerstone of our community's vitality, fostering inclusivity and understanding among people of various backgrounds. And whereas the contributions of the LGBTQIA+ communities enrich our city culturally, socially, and economically. And whereas the City of West Sacramento visualizes a world where every member of the LGBTQIA family can live authentically with liberty and equality guaranteed by the law. And whereas as society evolves in its understanding of sexuality and gender, education and awareness remains essential to combat discrimination and prejudice, and this year's theme, Activism and Social Change, highlights the ongoing fight for equity and justice for the LGBTQIA community. And whereas to honor the ongoing journey and raise awareness within the Pride movement, West Sacramento will proudly fly the rainbow flag, symbolizing light, healing, sun, tranquility, creativity, and spirit at City Hall throughout June. Now, therefore, be it hereby proclaimed by the West Sacramento City Council that June 2025 be designated as Pride Month in the City of West Sacramento, and we urge our residents to reflect on the ongoing struggle for equality faced by the LGBTQIA+ communities and celebrate their contributions to our city. Proclaim this 4th day of June, 2025. Reverend Hill?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And good evening, West Sacramento. It's a beautiful day. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to get too loud, I think the clerk said earlier. So why is pride so important? The opposite of pride is shame, humiliation, misery, and sorrow. Generations have lived in this condition because of false beliefs forced upon them. Can you imagine living a life of shame? Can you imagine living every day feeling humiliated? Would you want to live a life of misery and sorrow? Would you want that on your neighbor? The symbol of the pride flag allows each person of the rainbow community or the LGBTQI+ community to live an authentic and honest life without shame, humiliation, misery, and sorrow. I believe it is important for all of us to live authentically. The celebration of Pride Month allows all rainbow people, no matter their color, their national origin, their faith, to live with self-dignity and respect. I believe it's important to have self-dignity and respect. The flying of the pride flag demonstrates that all people, including the rainbow people, have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I believe this is what our ancestors fought for, and we need to continue to fight for. However, the history of our United States, this has not always been the case. We have achieved wonderful progress, but that progression has been under attack. The fight for freedom is the fight for oppression and challenges the status quo. Our dear late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King stated, "Freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor, it must be demanded by the oppressed." The city of West Sacramento has taken continued stand against this form of oppression by flying the pride flag. I believe the city of West Sacramento will become a great community because of it. I would like to give one example of greatness in West Sacramento. I was so honored to hear the story of a young person from River City High School, Brooke White, who proudly stood by a trans athlete and sharing second place podium despite the heckling from the audience and the criticism from our highest levels of government. This is pride. Being able to live in a community that celebrates life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in everything we do, no matter whether it be sports, work, school, or community activism, is extremely important. And this will always be a point of pride in West Sacramento. The flying of the pride flag in front of West Sacramento City Hall reclaims justice and equality for all. The citizens, the mayor, and city council should all stand tall and take pride during this month of celebration. And let the people say, amen.
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 Thank you,
Thank you
Reverend
very
Hill.
much.
Thank you, Reverend Hill. And thank you for bringing up Brooke White. I think the national attention that's been brought to this and how she's just stood in her strength and community is just such an incredible example of what West Sacramento is. So thank you for bringing attention to her. She's also one of my friend's daughters. So it's been really fun to see her get this recognition she deserves for being just such an incredible human and great parents who've raised her. Colleagues, would you like to share any words today?
Any words from my colleague?
You can go first.
Yes, you may, please.
Thank you so much for coming. And it's interesting. I think this might be my third or fourth proclamation for Pride Month that I've been able to be a part of since being on City Council. And I remember the first year thinking, oh my gosh, this is so amazing that we as a city get to do this and again, lead with our values. And what just an amazing time to be alive as a young person and being able to fully be accepted and seen by your community as accepted. And I will tell you, I spoke a couple of weeks ago, and it feels different right now. And what I hearken back to, and I distinctly remember going back to 2018 and sitting in an audience. I was completing some sort of certification program, and the speaker was saying at that time how right now what we were experiencing at that time back in 2018 was the last gasp of white supremacy. And all of the hate and the division that you were feeling, right, against our LGBTQ community, against Black and Brown, transgender folks, that what we were experiencing was last gasp. And I just thought to myself, okay, if we could just get through this, right? Like if I can close my eyes, white knuckle through it, we will go back to some semblance of normal, right? Of accepting each other and seeing each other, what our values, right? Not only are represented here in West Sacramento, but in America, what I believe in and what I believe that our country really represents. And I remember thinking, okay, once it's over, it's over. And here we are in 2025, and who would have thought that we would be at this point where we are fighting once again for just basic rights to be seen and welcome for who we are, things that I think we all thought we had come to terms with, right? That we accepted each other, and that this is, right, what our kids need. This is what our youth need. When we accept them, they are healthier, right? When we accept our community and are welcoming, we are better collectively for that. And I thought to myself, what I didn't understand then in 2018 was that, yes, it was the last gasp of white supremacy, but that in that last gasp, you have to fight the hardest. That is when hate will show up and not sleep. And so what I ask of all of us today, as sort of I have this bully pulpit, is that it is incumbent upon all of us to fight for our communities, to fight for our values, what we believe in. And yes, we are celebrating Pride Month and celebrating as allies, but it is up to us tomorrow after we get done celebrating to go and fight and advocate, because right now our values and what we believe and stand for are under attack right now. And soon we will look up, and it will not just be the last gasp of white supremacy. We will have gone backwards for all of the things that we fight for and we bled for again, an entire generation. And so thank you for representing and fighting for so much of what I believe in and what I know that we all believe in. And I say, tell your neighbor, tell your friend, tell everyone that we have to wake up and we have to pay attention right now.
Thank you.
Orozco.
Well, I don't have any prepared comments tonight, which is unusual because I like to write stuff out and then really speak from the heart from there. But tonight I'm gonna wing it. I want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the lovely representation, for what we get a place right above our hearts and a pin as we go out and represent in the community. And today there's a video that circulated throughout the city that really represented what the city respects. And, you know, all people should be treated equally regardless of who they love. And I think that we spoke that loud and clear, regardless of I don't even acknowledge that. Let me just say we said that loud and clear.
Thank you.
Back in 1996, maybe it was 2007, then Mayor Christopher Cabalden did something very courageous. Right below us in the City Hall Galleria, during a State of the City address, something that we're going to enjoy tomorrow here in the chambers, down below the chambers, he got up to give his State of the City address. But instead of talking about developments and the culture of the city and new parks and trails, he told the 150 guests, developers, business owners, residents, he was an openly gay man starting that day. And it was something that he had hidden from the world up until that time, largely because he felt that he could be an elected official or mayor, or he could be a gay man, but he couldn't be both. The culture and the climate at the time was not welcoming, and he decided, for the sake of everyone else coming after him, that he was going to tell the world who he was in his most authentic, most authentic version of who he was. Now, I mentioned that, 10 years later, because since then, we've had candidates step forward with the courage and bravery to say, I too can step forward on behalf of my community. I want to serve. Two openly gay candidates who want to serve the city of West Sacramento. And it's beautiful to see, because at the end of the day, we want to be the most inclusive and respectful of diversity and welcoming community we can be. And I think each one of us at the dais try to represent that in every way that we know we can, right, through our lenses. But I think back on it, and I've had the great pleasure of seeing those two candidacies throughout their campaigns, and I look forward to seeing much more of that. I want to celebrate how far we've come and how far we'll go. But it just takes one single act of courage to stand forth and to say, we are all welcome. So with that, I celebrate Pride Month. I celebrate Pride Year, Pride Existence. Yesterday, I was on a panel for the California Natural Resources Association and saw so many wonderful leaders stepping forth into their power, talking about what it is that they do and how they intend to promote us as a community together as a whole moving forward. So tonight's a really special proclamation night for me every year. I'm grateful you're here. I'm grateful for our crowd that's here to celebrate tonight. And I'm grateful for our community that embraces everything about Pride.
Thank you. Reverend Hill, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your friendship. I'm really proud that the West Sacramento City Council and the City of West Sacramento recognizes Pride Month. I am going to allow my other council members to speak because they did such an excellent job. They're very eloquent. So I just want to throw a shout out there, though, to my niece, Sarah, and to her wife, Gio, and to my friends, Danny, Rory, Evan, and Margarita, and say Happy Pride Month to them. Thank you.
Well, yes. I do have family members. And being a Latina, growing up in a Latino family, very challenging for my family members to come out and to be loved, and mostly to be seen. And that is what I embrace here in West Sacramento. And I was sitting in the audience when our past mayor, Cabalden, revealed what I think we've known, but I think for him to share it personally and share his personal story, that's what we need to hear. How you feel, what you experience, we want to know. And to stand shoulder to shoulder with the Brooks out there who are saying, we receive you, we accept you, we partner with you every step of the way. And that's what I want this message to continue to perpetuate. When I saw that what Brooke did, I had to elevate it on behalf of the city, just saying she's doing the right thing. And it's just been a great experience to have a city that is supportive, and will continue to work with you, and the whole city council to be supporting you. And so thank you, Reverend Scott Hill, for handing us the flag. And because it was because of you that we have been able to have a flag up celebrating Pride Month all June. And so thank you so much for doing that, for taking that initiative, for your courage, for those standing around you who support you, and those who've also, tried to run for office. There are people who we need to continue to see working their path and supporting them. So just wanted to, go take the photo.
Yeah. And then the one thing I'll mention, we have some members in the room. The West Sacramento Democratic Club is going to be marching in the Pride Parade with our Senator Christopher Cabalden that was mentioned today. And so anybody who would like to join us, please reach out, and we'd love to share that information with you. So let's take a picture.
Oh, this will be good. Be good. One more, and one more. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Okay. You okay? When did- I've seen it this. They weren't. Who's the? Well, I caught it. Yeah, we're not. Okay. Next is the proclamation recognizing June 6, 2025 as National Gun Violence Awareness Day. And we have Anna Domick with Moms Demand Action and her team. If you all like to come on up. It is my honor to present this proclamation of the City of West Sacramento recognizing June 6, 2025 as National Gun Violence Awareness Day. Whereas more than 125 individuals are killed by gun violence every day in the United States, with over 260 more wounded and an average of over 19,000 gun homicides occurring annually, making this a national public health crisis. And whereas in recent months, West Sacramento has been deeply affected by 2 separate shootings, one at Summerfield Park that claimed the life of a 16-year-old, and another nearby that left another teen critically injured, demonstrating the urgent need for community-wide attention to gun violence prevention. And whereas in response to these shootings, the City of West Sacramento stands united in condemning gun violence, recognizing that no child should pay the price for a culture of retaliation. No family should be left grieving in the place they call home. And whereas cities like West Sacramento are working to implement evidence-based strategies to prevent gun violence while supporting the rights of responsible, law-abiding gun owners. And whereas Mayor Martha Guerrero is a member of Mayors Against Illegal Guns, and the City of West Sacramento is home to the Yolo County chapter of Moms Demand Action, a dedicated group working to prevent gun violence and promote safety and peace throughout our region. And whereas National Gun Violence Awareness Day was inspired by the life of Hadia Pendleton, a Chicago 15-year-old who was shot and killed in 2013, and whose friends began a movement to wear orange as a symbol of the value of every human life. And whereas on June 6, 2025, people across the United States will wear orange to honor the lives lost to gun violence, support survivors, and raise awareness about the need for action. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the City of West Sacramento City Council hereby designates June 6, 2025 as National Gun Violence Awareness Day in the City of West Sacramento, proclaimed this 4th day of June. And if you'd like to share some thoughts and words here with us, please.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for that proclamation. As the founder and first lead of the Yolo County Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, gun violence prevention is near and dear to my heart. With the recent shootings in our city and other shootings across the region, frustration can easily give way to despair. My mom's heart aches for the parents who have had to close a coffin lid on their child killed in our community. No one should have to do that. Families shouldn't be ripped apart as they try to make sense of what happened because people made bad decisions and had easy access to a gun. In addition to the human cost, with every gun death in an area, the local jurisdiction spends on average $1 million of taxpayer funds, extra policing to try to find the perpetrator, investigations into what happened, life-saving attempts, and other costs run through the roof. So if we can find a way to prevent gun violence, we will save lives and money. So often we wring our hands wanting things to be different, but change is so hard to enact that it seems like the lives of those kids and others end up being the price we have to pay for the ability to have such easy access to guns. But it doesn't have to be this way. One of the frustrations of advocacy is that while we do the work highlighting the need for change, we are dependent on others to craft a solution that can fix those problems. Local government both most acutely feels the effects of gun violence and also has the proximity to improve things and save lives. While no one has all the answers, we can look to our sister city of Woodland for a way to limit our gun violence in West Sacramento. Several years ago, in a collaborative effort, Woodland enacted a series of actions to reduce gun violence. This included supporting and bringing in a community violence intervention group that does intensive work with the people they identified as most likely to commit violence. It also tries to do preventative work and interrupt the cycle of violence. In the first year implemented, in 2022, Woodland saw a 91% reduction in gun violence, a number which has continued to stay low. I'd hope that our city could follow Woodland's lead in this way, and not just supporting community violence intervention programs in principle, but ensuring the implementation and efficacy of such programs and looking into a comprehensive way to work to reduce gun violence as a city. Thank you so much for this proclamation and the commitment to reducing gun violence from the whole City Council. Our city and our police department have a history of innovation and thoughtful community responses. So I'm confident that we can do as well or better to save lives in West Sacramento by implementing actions to reduce gun violence. Thank you again.
Thank you. Anybody else? Share a few words? And thank you so much for joining us to receive the proclamation. I think it's the first time here in City Council. I think we did give it before separately as a mayor's proclamation, but here as a council, because we always stood by you and having it done, and it should be done every year. Gun violence has been pervasive, all throughout the region. And I believe our city is a member of the Yolo County, the Yolo Gun Violence Prevention Collaborative. We're new, and they meet regularly, and our West Sacramento Police Department is participating member. And our chief goes above and beyond by trying to do more and applied for a federal grant, received it, so that we can do gun violence prevention. And I think that that's testament, given what we've experienced here in West Sacramento, given what I've experienced doing a ride-along where there are more people carrying guns illegally than I think we even are aware of on a daily basis. It's very scary. So we just have to do everything we can to speak out against it, to fight it, and to continue to work together as a council. And I'd like to ask my colleagues to share a few words. Start off with Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you for being here tonight. The proclamation mentioned the recent shootings in West Sacramento, and we were actually here on the dais when we received the alert that the 16-year-old had died from the shooting in Summerfield Park. And that was a very emotional moment for me. As a resident, as a mom, as an elected official, an absolutely senseless act. And when these things happen so close to home, you wonder what could have been done differently. And when the second shooting occurred, I happened to be out of town, and quite a few members of the community reached out to me about it. Concerns about, what this meant for the community, if it was going to continue. I want to thank the police department for swiftly responding to all of that. I shared a statement on social media, but it was really about community and making sure that we checked in on our neighbors and made sure that we still visited our local businesses and that we went to the parks and we activated these spaces. And that's part of it. But part of it is also advocacy and changing the laws and the rules. And I think Moms Demand Action is a phenomenal organization that has been at the front of gun violence prevention, data-backed solutions. And so I've seen moms from their calls where thousands of moms jump on a call. Those are absolutely incredible and inspiring, from all of the visits to the state capitol. And I appreciate you all coming tonight. I appreciate the call to action, because it's always a question, can we be doing more? And so thank you for your advocacy. Thank you for being here tonight. And just thank you for your fight.
Councilmember Alcala.
Okay, thank you. When I was on the school board, I was the president, and I put a message out on gun violence. One of my fellow board members said I had offended NRA parents. And I told him I was offended that he didn't say anything. Traveling to now, I've had two constituents who've been very disturbed by, but there's some billboards out there. I don't know if any of you got the calls.
I got
You
messages.
got the calls too. I did also. And I did refer them to your organization. So hopefully, I told them there's nothing we can do. These are individuals who have billboards, and they can put those signs up. But the messaging is bad. And I'm hoping maybe, I don't know if there's some legislation or something, we can, I'm not talking about stopping the First Amendment, but there has to be something that can be done to, I believe, not make it such a sexy thing to own a gun. So thanks for your work.
Councilmember Early.
I just want to echo what my colleagues have said in regards to thank you for your advocacy. I appreciate you all also advocating to us. So not only advocating within the community, and I do think there is more that we could do as a city. I appreciate our mayor calling out all of the great things that we have done and that our police department does and continues to work towards this. Our community has experienced very recently gun violence and death, very senseless death. And my hope would be that this for us, not only this proclamation, but also recently what has happened, is also a moment for us to step up and figure out how can we do more, again, in partnership with our police department and as a council and as a city. So thank you.
And I've known you for many, many years, and I remember you and both of you back League of Women Voters days, Moms Demand Action, and orange being my favorite color. There's no stopping you all. I've been a prosecutor 20 years now this year, and most of that time I've been working with children who have been victims of violence, whether that be by the hands of other people. Well, obviously it's normally by the hands of other people, but by the hands of, folks carrying guns that has happened. Child abuse comes in every form. But yeah, I just want to comment on your commitment. The most vulnerable victims that depend on us for their protection, and if they get overlooked, that's the future of our humanity. I appreciate your commitment to all of our children, because it's not just some, all. And I'm glad to see that our chief of police and our council and the leadership has been strong. I know that shouldn't be taken for granted. That's not everywhere, right? We in West Sacramento do things differently. We're small but mighty. And to have you in a community and share the space with you is an absolute honor. And I appreciate your advocacy and your strength and all of us.
And just to summarize, it was because of Moms Demand Action and the times when we convened out, I think, in Treehouse Cafe and I think one other time where you pushed for the YOLO, the YOLO collaborative, that's what prompted, you know, a conversation. I was unaware of the program. And the County Board of Supervisors, it did have a cost to it, funded it, because they did want to implement it. It was their initiative and your push, your advocacy, that got it implemented countywide. So we do need to stay on top of what progress we're making and track data and take a look at where the gaps are, see what we can do to continue to address this. I do know that our K-9 units are very good in their training to find guns. They're the ones that go in and sniff out for any guns, that anything that shouldn't be in a vehicle or in a person. And just being able to see what they've accomplished. I think that's the investment that our police department continues to provide so that we can keep our city streets safe and our community safe. And just to continue to push whatever ideas you have. We're here receptive all ears to support you on your behalf. So thank you. We'll go down for a photo.
Thank you.
All right. This way at me on 3. 1, 2, 3. On 3. 1, 2, 3.
All right, next is our consent agenda items 4 through 10, and we have an errata that if there's a motion to make the motion to include the errata, and I'm going to be pulling number 6 first. I think Stephen Rosen will be presenting on that. But if he can, when that time comes, are there any other items anybody would like to pull? 9? Any other items? Nope. Okay. And Stephen, please come on up. This is a very important agenda item. I think it was on the news too. You're famous. I got requests from the press about this, and I said, well, I need a presentation as well.
Okay. I'm happy to give the staff report this evening.
Thank you.
Are there questions specifically, or did you want to pull it off the consent agenda for a separate presentation? That's normally.
Why don't we do that? We'll pull it off the consent agenda, and, just hold on, it'll take a second, don't go anywhere. This will take I'll accept a motion for,
I have questions on 9.
you have questions on 9.
I do. But I don't need a full presentation. Do you want to do questions on 9 first and then presentation? It's up to you. Sure, world. Squirrel.
Why don't we pull 4 and 9, and then we'll take a motion. And then
Okay,
we'll,
motion. So moved.
okay, with the errata on 10? All right. And Councilmember Alcala moved, and Councilmember Orozco seconded. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Were we moving 6 and 9?
Councilmember Acala?
Aye.
Councilmember Early?
Aye.
Councilmember Roscoe,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sulpicio Hall,
Aye.
Mayor Guerrero,
Aye. All right, that, from 4 through 10, minus 6 and 9 is approved. Hey, Stephen, come on up.
Good evening. I'm Steve Rosen from the Community Development Department's Transportation and Mobility Division, and I'm here tonight with my colleague Tracy McMillan from Nelson Nygaard to update the City Council on our progress toward a Vision Zero action plan. So tonight I'll be ladling out some alphabet soup and be referring to these acronyms. SS4A is Safe Streets and Roads for All. That is the grant program that's funding this initiative along with our local match. The Vision Zero Action Plan is the plan that we'll be creating based on all of this input and research. FSI crash is a crash that results in a fatality or a serious injury. And VRU is vulnerable road users, those people on our roads who are not protected by the body of a motor vehicle. So Vision Zero is about creating a safer system of transportation. The old way puts the responsibility for street safety on the shoulders of street users and then demanded perfect behavior from them to avoid injury. And the safe system approach acknowledges that everyone shares responsibility for street safety. That includes the designers of the streets, the users of the streets, the maintainers of the streets, the enforcers, and the responders. And the methods of developing the safe streets approach include safe speeds, safe road users, safe roads, safe vehicles, and post-crash care. The metaphor we like to use is a stack of Swiss cheese slices. Each of these methods is like a slice that is full of holes that can let a crash through. But when we stack up the slices of Swiss cheese, the cheese overlaps the holes, so there's no way for the crash to get through. So the Vision Zero Action Plan will be the city's policy guide to stack the cheese and block the holes, to start to reduce and ultimately eliminate traffic mayhem. And because it's such a profound change, a requirement from the SS4A funding program is a commitment from the highest level of a local government in West Sacramento, that is the City Council. So tonight, we're here to recommend a goal that the City Council can direct us to adopt. So to prevent crashes, we need to know where those crashes will occur. So we went to the experts, our communities, to ask them what they see out in the city. So the Vision Zero team went to existing events, organized walking audits, collected information online, held some stakeholder meetings to target groups that we noticed weren't attending the other events, and we met with our community advisory committee of volunteers. And last night, we held a workshop across the street in the library. It was productive and fun. So the community told us where they feel unsafe on the streets and where they observe unsafe behavior and near misses. Now, this was essential because our crash data is based on reported crashes, so we needed the community's input to fill the gaps on where there was danger but not reported crashes. When I say crash data, we have crash data. In our 7-year study period, there were 1,373 crashes that resulted in an injury. 101 were crashes that resulted in a fatal or serious injury. 29 people died in that period, and 117 people were seriously injured. And that means suffering an injury that will change a life or change several years of your life. These are the types of crashes we identified. They identified what was going on when the driver crashed the vehicle, but we also identified the primary collision factors that the police officers observed. That means that is the thing that, had it not occurred, there would not have been a crash. And the 3 most common primary collision factors were reported as pedestrian violation, failure to obey traffic signals and signs, and driving under the influence. And we also studied who the traffic mayhem affects the most. We found that the great majority of FSI crashes occur in disadvantaged communities, with an especially high concentration of crashes involving vulnerable road users in those communities. And we ultimately combined our crash data with the community data to identify the high injury locations that we will target for priority and improvement. 70% of the FSI crashes occur on just 3.5% of streets in West Sacramento. So that caught you up with where we are today. And tonight we will be asking the City Council to accept a recommendation for a goal to work toward. The SS4A program requires a goal that, to quote it, is an ambitious percentage reduction of roadway fatalities and serious injuries by a specific date with an eventual goal of eliminating roadway fatalities and serious injuries. Now, we believe that a realistic but ambitious goal is better than an audacious goal because meeting or exceeding the goal will keep the city and community morale high and motivation high. And we don't want discouragement. We want constant improvement and to keep people from getting hurt. So our study period had a mean of 14.5 FSI crashes per year. And we recommend a goal of 50% reduction in 10 years and then a continuous reduction thereafter until we reach 0. So our next steps for the project are where we plan how to achieve the goal. We propose 5 priority projects that will target the most dangerous specific locations, conditions, and behaviors. City staff has had success including priority projects in other planning documents. These are like mini feasibility studies, mini program documents, or schematic plans that kickstart implementation and let us skip ahead to the next step for the priority projects. We will also prepare a menu of countermeasures that are proven to work in the kind of crashes that occur in West Sacramento. The menu will tell us what kind of crash each countermeasure prevents and will be a guide of how to use that countermeasure. And they will include permanent infrastructure, quick build infrastructure, education program, and enforcement methods. We also have a guide to adding Vision Zero countermeasures to everything we do. So we're going to look for opportunities to add Vision Zero to construction projects, maintenance work, and the allocation of resources so that we never miss a chance to move forward. And thank you for letting me give this report. And my colleague Tracy McMillan from Nelson Nygaard and I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions among the council members? Yes, Councilmember Alcala.
I just had some quick things. I know when I was walking some precincts, people were mentioning that they needed lighting, that was a big factor also. Quite a few people actually said right there on Anna and Bright, very, very dark in that intersection. I don't know if there have been any fatalities or not, but I heard about a lot of near misses there. Are we going to use undulations? I hate that word, undulations, in areas where the cars are going really quickly? Is that one of the plans that we have? And I'll let you answer those. Just one more question after.
Lighting and undulations have been proven to be effective in reducing crashes because they increase visibility. So when people can see where they're going and what's in front of them, they won't run into things. And undulations have been proven to reduce traffic speeds. I have a feeling that those will make the cut into the menu of countermeasures we add to the plan.
I think mention the lighting because people say when they're walking, they like to take evening walks.
Of course.
And it's really dangerous. And then one more thing. You do have data in the different areas, right? Fatalities that have occurred, like people getting hit.
Yes.
Okay, and the sidewalk, especially in Old Bright, there are no sidewalks over there. It's so dangerous. I've heard a lot of folks saying, I'm a member of Holy Cross Church. I hear people consistently saying, that the older folks get hurt because the walkers, there aren't any safe places to walk there. And families, they're really small, afraid for them to ride their tricycle. At least there were nice sidewalks. They feel a lot better, but kids have fallen over where it's uneven and all. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. I just have a couple of questions. One, any chance that this comes up? Yes, you remember, but I'm not going to start with that.
Okay.
But any chance this comes up, because recently, City of West Sacramento, we put in, I know I'm going to probably say, call the names wrong, but the little islands throughout, and to kind of like slow traffic, make it safer. And the number of complaints I think we all got about those throughout the city.
through them.
Yes.
Roundabouts?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, not the roundabouts. Okay.
What is it?
Islands like that are halfway across a crosswalk.
Oh,
so
the
that
ones in the intersection.
Yes. What are they called?
Roundabouts.
No.
No, not roundabouts. Although I'm not a fan of roundabouts either,
Medians.
but
Median.
Put it in
medians. Thank you. This is why I love Aaron.
Pedestrian refuge islands.
We've now worked together for so long. He is in my brain. And so I do just want to make sure I call out, as we're talking about traffic safety, as the things we're going to do, that likely we will continue, right, as we add these things like medians and other traffic calming solutions, that what that also means is they're going to be inconvenient because you're going to have to go slower. Right? They're going to be inconvenient because, again, if they're really doing their job, we will have to be more careful and all of the things. And so I was curious about, as you're going through, what would be the community engagement and the feedback, because I felt like we did a lot of community engagement, but we still continue to hear about the medians.
Well, we do have more workshops in the plan. We'll be sharing the countermeasures to gain people's feedback about them. What we found at the workshop last night was that many of the attendees were in favor of countermeasures that would slow cars down, and for the sake of making people who aren't in cars safer, and people who are in cars, making them safer too, at the cost of this slight reduction in speed.
During all the community engagement that you all have done, because it does look like you've done quite a bit, I think during that time, we actually put in these measures like our medians. Did you get feedback about that, like real time?
Not about any specific ones that I
Okay.
can remember.
All right. Just two more questions. One of the things our mayor and myself noted, I think the last time you came and presented, was there weren't a lot of what appeared to be traffic fatalities or incidences in the Southport area, particularly in my district, which is District 3. So think Marshall, think Southport Parkway, and that area. But I will tell you, we hear about them and experience them quite a bit, and so was surprised to see that. Have you done engagements in various parts of the city? And also, have you heard, and maybe it's just not reflected in the data?
We've got, we took one of our 2 walking audits was in the Southport area, where we invited people to come out and walk the street with us so we can teach them to speak planner and report problems to us. And this is the map, the community engagement map. So we gathered, we heard the complaints from the south and then squared it with the crash data and produced a map of this is the map of the high injury locations that we'll be targeting, the 70% of crashes within 3.5% of streets.
Okay, well, you do have at least Marshall and Jefferson, which definitely is, if I'm reading this correctly, is a hotspot. What I would also, I think, highlight that we hear quite a bit is our trucks, big, semi trucks from our business park area going down Marshall, going down Southport Parkway, and that feeling, and oftentimes being dangerous. Did you get any of that feedback?
We heard that trucks make the road feel very unsafe. We've been working with our engineering department to first map places where trucks are prohibited and then sign them so that it's enforceable now. And that's a change that happened in the last year or so that I helped work on the truck map.
What does that really mean? And I ask, pretend I'm a layperson. There's a sign up that says, hey, trucks shouldn't drive here. And I will tell you, I see them all the time on Marshall. What does enforcement look like if a truck is there?
Well out of my element about traffic ticketing.
Is our chief going to come?
I
I
just
see him.
I just helped make
He's
the
going to
map.
save you. He does that well.
Is that a component of this? You want
thank
to
you.
make sure of that. Is
Is that a component?
of
She's
this
just making sure I
conversation?
don't go offline.
No, we don't know whether the trucks are, trucks were not the presence of the trucks was not a target identified as a cause of the collisions that produced this. It's not in the list of, it's not a behavior, it's a vehicle type. So the reported crash data is about what the vehicles were doing and not about what the vehicle was. So
But doesn't size matter in this case, right? Like, so if you have big semi trucks going fast, right? So the driver is going fast. But if you have those semi trucks, don't they make it more dangerous?
I'm sure they do, but we don't. Did we, Matt?
Can I just kind of bring it back to, I just want to make sure we're all clear what we're doing with this item tonight, because you saw
Appreciate
kind
you,
of a
Aaron.
presentation that you've seen before. But I think what the crux of the item is, you're setting a goal for our Vision Zero plan of a 50% reduction. You can go to that slide. The way you get there, they're in the report. I would encourage you to look at page 2 and page 3. There are 5 priority projects and programs that are outlined that identify sort of the highest incidence of crashes as has been outlined. There are road segments identified, particularly along Southport Parkway between Ramco and Carlin. There's a very familiar to all of us section of Linden near the high school, near Stonegate. And there's a series of programs that programs and other project measures that in combination are designed to hit that goal of a 50% reduction. So there are other contributing factors to road safety as you're about to talk about with the trucks in places they're not supposed to be trucks, but I just want to be clear that that's what we're here to do tonight.
And
We're here to set a goal of 50% reduction through these measures.
And changing the behavior of the truck drivers is not on the agenda for tonight, is what I'm hearing. Did I get that right?
I think that's a related topic that probably, it's a good question to ask and get the chief's opinion in terms of how we're addressing through patrol the issues of trucks being in places they're not supposed to be. I don't see, that particular countermeasure as one of the list of priorities. What the priorities are intended to do is directly address that 50% reduction. And these are the things that have been identified by staff as being the most effective to get to that number.
Okay, I'm going to ask you one more question, Aaron.
Yeah.
So we don't believe, and I want to make sure, so we do not think based on our data that the semi trucks driving in areas that they shouldn't be in and being in parts of our roads are contributing to traffic fatalities. Did I get that right?
I don't have that data to make that answer. We certainly don't want semi-trucks driving on non-truck routes, but I think the data that's in this plan, I think we have precise level of information on what those
Is that
traffic
even on
incidents
your
have
radar?
been.
Maybe I should just talk
Yeah, I
to
think
you
that's
guys.
probably a better question for,
Well, these are the locations of fatal and severe injury crashes. And Marshall Road doesn't have one within the study period.
I think my point is those are kind of two separate issues.
But I'm seeing appreciate you, but I'm seeing along Southport Parkway, where Ramco intersects that those green dots were those not?
There were 3 fatal and crashes on Southport Parkway, Carlin. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why that project on the 5 high priority list. Tonight in the memo include the 5 high priority projects. What the plan will also include is 5 overall goals, a list of strategies associated with each goals, then an act strategy that for us to bring forth an item like that. There is a lot of freight traffic that travels within and through West Sacramento. whether it's force, traffic calming, traffic, rate traffic. And then there is already a strategy overall coordination, the police department on enforcement, visibility enforcement, some of those prior behaviors that have been a primary collision factor.
Okay, thank you.
And I think for your question, we can get more precise data to the council about what was the nature of the fatal incidents in those sections. I can tell you from memory, and the chief can probably speak better to this, it typically is high rates of speed in that corridor, drivers driving unsafe. I don't want anyone to take from this item that truck traffic in places where trucks aren't supposed to be is not a priority of the city. It's absolutely a challenge that we have come up with different countermeasures to address, and certainly the number one thing that the chief can reiterate is having more patrol, having more traffic patrol. So, but that's, you may not see it called out precisely here because according to the data we have, these are the countermeasures that will most likely contribute to reducing fatal collisions by 50%. So hopefully I'm capturing that.
You did, and I think I might have digressed a little bit. Aaron, I appreciate you.
No, but it's important. Right.
Keeping me on topic. I'm good.
I think Mayor Pro Tem first, and then Councilmember Rose.
Okay, go first. Thank you for this presentation. I'm a very visual person, so your description, stack the cheese and block the holes, really resonates with me, and I appreciate the different levels that are being taken into consideration for this. I remember when we had this first conversation, I got a little too in the weeds, and I want to try to remain at a 30,000 foot look at this. I'm very pleased with the second priority project, and it's great that the data backs up that the Jefferson Boulevard and Linden Road area will be a high priority project. Absolutely agree with that, and so that's phenomenal. That's not too far from my house, intersection I cross daily, and so I think, you know, in my lived experience, like, we're absolutely on point with that priority project. This goal that we have, what's our plan for checking in and seeing how we're doing? Reading the staff report, I did not catch if we are going to be coming back annually, biannually. Like, what's the process for us to see how we're doing?
Well, we hadn't set one yet, and so if that's a great time for you to tell us how often you'd like us to report back. Annual would be great. We do a lot. We can do that a lot. We can do that with a lot of plans.
I mean, I think this is an incredibly ambitious goal, and I think it's positive, and I think it's moving absolutely in the right direction to reduce road fatalities. You know, I thought one of the stats that if we could go back a slide, that high percentage of crashes were in just 3.5% of West Sacramento streets. Fascinating, but would love to come back, I would say annually, just to get an update of where we're at, whether it's from the projects and what's being recommended at these, and if the numbers are actually moving, because obviously there will be like the design and the implementation time, and we're not going to see results in a year. And so it would be really nice to just have an update of where we're at with these projects, how it's aligning with our long-term goals. And then, you know, once the projects are complete, then annually we kind of see the number go down.
Okay.
Annually?
I would be comfortable with that.
We're all good with
everyone else
annually?
is.
I mean,
If that makes sense. And if annually becomes too much, we can spread it out a little bit more, but it would be nice to get updates to see how we're doing, because this is a big deal.
To the menu of things that.
Yeah, I don't see that as an issue giving an annual report. I think the format of the report is something we'll talk amongst staff to see whether it's something we communicate to the council as a separate report outside of a council meeting, or if it's something it makes sense to bring back in the context of like our annual CIP, because a lot of these projects will be in the CIP, and that could be a good venue to say, here's a check-in on Vision Zero as well.
Yeah. Councilmember Roscoe, you're
Thank you.
up next.
Thank you. I just want to remind you know, our community that we are a traditionally industrial city. We have changed in the last 30 years by implementing a variety of developments and lots of different streets and walkable, bikeable community goals, and even less than a week ago, cutting a ribbon on one of the most beautiful infrastructure projects over the freeway in order to connect our city. And yet, I don't know if I'm the only one that was around when we did the traffic calming measures on Linden, but you would have imagined that we ended up barreling through children and directly with our cars because there was such a backlash by lots of folks who wanted to change the complexion of the speeding in that community, but didn't like the measures that were implemented in order to effectuate that. Now, the reason I mention this is because I think we as a community cannot just depend on the city council or the city to create grand scale behavioral changes in people's homes. I think we as a community need to take responsibility by the way we operate our cars and the way we treat our neighbors and the way we treat the members of our city. And that means really putting pressure on each other to not be speeding and taking really good care on the way we operate the vehicles in our community. I spent a lot of time in different cities, one of which is Davis, and you see bicyclists everywhere there, and people happen to understand that there is a culture there to mind the bicyclists or the walkers there. And that's something that I think are growing pains that we're going to be going through. But in the process, everybody seems to ask for speed bump when that might not, first of all, be the most appropriate traffic calming measure for that particular complexion of the city. But we want an outcome. But how do we get it together? And how do we support the outcome at the same time? So I appreciate this presentation because I think we all want the outcome. We all want a safer community. We want our children to leave the house without having to be driven because we're worried about their safety. I remember as a young kid getting on my bike and driving in South Sacramento down Power End Road when there wasn't a sidewalk. And it was the ditch and the traffic, and I was in the middle. And in the 6th grade at 10 years old, I would ride my bike to Florida Elementary School. And we would never put our children purposefully in a dangerous situation if we could help. But part of the scenario is acknowledging that our drivers need to take responsibility for their driving, that we as a city need to make our city as safe as possible, that we as a department are enforcing violations, and that we are working together as a community to embrace these changes, that everybody wants the freedom to drive the way they want and to get where they want fast as possible. But that might not happen if we want the ultimate goal of having a safe community. You might have to drive a little slower, or you might be in one lane instead of the two that you previously enjoyed because we're making room for bicyclists. But with that all said, I'm absolutely appreciative of this conversation. I think that we're all, we all want the idealistic outcome. I think we're heading in that direction. I just think that it's bigger than just the 5 of us on a dais and the staff members that are working on it. I think it's a full-on cultural change that we all need to embrace, and I hope we get there.
You have another thing to say? No, I just want to have a few questions. Stephen, can you go back to the slide with the little dot? There.
This one?
Yes, that one. I'm taking a look at Jefferson Boulevard. It has quite a few dots. And there's one where there was a little girl who, no fault of her own, fell off her bicycle because there was no curve. It was like a ditch, and she and her family were riding, and unfortunately, that accident happened. And then there is further down the road in Jefferson where there's a little curve, and people tend to drive too fast, missing that curve. It could be at night, and I don't know what could be done there. Those are 2 areas. Jefferson, along that area, tends to be an area that I think, as Councilmember Orozco mentioned, we were an industrial little town. It was a farm town back then. Just now we're going to be seeing some growth, and having Yarborough, take a look at making sure that we have safe roads first, while that's being developed, it's like incorporating that in that vision in the future. Like, if we're going to have development, we got to have safe roads because we'll have more traffic, more people on their bicycles. And that is, for me, really important as we plan in the future, Stephen, that you plug yourself in and insert your thoughts as those projects are moving forward, to share your insight on what we need to do to keep those roads coming along and safe. So whatever I can do to support you on that, because I think you have a lot of good data on what's going on throughout the city, where are the hot spots as you have here, probably embedded in your memory, and your staff as well, who work with you. And know that we have your back to support you, to make sure that we see, you know, a lot of, I see a ton more people in their bicycles. I see a ton more people on the bicycles without helmets, and that's not a good sign. But a ton more people on their bicycles. And Southport Elementary, for example, they have a wait list of 80 kids who can't go into the YMCA. And it's going to be those kids that are probably going to be jumping on a bike getting home for the first time. And when we started the, you know, the Southport bike bus, teaching kids, parents terrified about how their kids do not look on the road safely, or don't know how to drive safely on the road, or aren't watching for cars darting out. It can happen in the blink of an eye that a child can get hurt. And so, as we see that, you know, our community is growing, after-school programs are going to be inaccessible, and people are just going to have to put their kids on a bike so they can get home, or on a scooter or something, and to incorporate wherever you think you need to incorporate more education for kids to learn how to ride safely as a part of the Vision Zero. Just do a little more than just fix roads. And so think beyond just this, if we can, and incorporate it into here. That's what I'd like to see, because I think there is a lot more as a city we can do. And I just want to empower you and the staff to contribute to that. You know, planning in the future and ideas, and whatever resources you need, don't hesitate to ask. You're welcome. And I think we have a request to speak, Madam Clerk.
Yes, ma'am. George Dominguez?
Hello, George.
Hello, Mayor. Good evening, council members. My name is George Dominguez, and I have been serving as a member of the Community Advisory Group to the Vision Zero project. And I moved to West Sacramento about 7 years ago, and I used it to commute on bicycle to my work in New York City when the Vision Zero project started there, because it became a safe way to commute. And when I came to West Sacramento, I said, this is perfect. I will be commuting again. And I did that for a few years. I live in Jefferson, and my organizational office was at Harbor. And it was becoming very dangerous to do that commute by bicycle. I then stopped because it was a lot of traffic, huge trucks that actually made me feel unsafe. And then I started seeing some crashes that were actually impacting people. And I decided that I would only ride where it was safe. Like, for example, going to the recreation center where I can take the bike lanes or places like that. There are many things that can be done. And I think that we need to look at this data with one perspective as well. One thing that was shown there is that about 60% of the victims of those crashes are the vulnerable road users. So the majority of people who actually have the fatalities or injuries, they are the people who are more vulnerable. And if there are some traffic measures to make it slower or safer or calmer, it's an inconvenience when we are driving. But for those of us when we are riding a bicycle, it's not an inconvenience. It's a matter of life or death. So I think it's very important that the council takes this and establish these goals. I believe that these goals are achievable, and I think that we can actually educate our city for people to be much more courteous, but also aware that this is actually a way for us to make the city, the quality of the life in the city much better. I thank you for taking this. I think it's an important matter, and I hope that you will continue to support the staff who is leading this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have no additional requests to speak on this item.
Mayor, may I-
Yes, close the public comment, bringing it back to Councilmember
Thank
Alcala, who
you.
has a question.
Just real quick, no, actually, just a
Oh.
comment. Thank you for bringing that up about kids not wearing the helmet. But I'm just wondering if sometimes people can't afford helmets for their kids. I know it seems like a lot of helmet only costs a few bucks, but for some families it's a stretch. And I'm wondering if part of the program couldn't be maybe to provide free helmets.
Well, yes. go to the
Available, 'cause
Youth
I really
Climate
like
Ac-
that.
Go to the Youth Climate Action Fund,
Mhm.
which you can ask for, up to $5,000. It's still available. We just delivered boxes and boxes of helmets, bike locks, and T-shirts for the Southport bike bus who participated. So those youth will be, it's citywide, it's actually countywide now. And so helmets can be included as part of the grant.
I was just going to say, it'd be great to be able to get them into some areas where maybe you don't have to travel. Were they over here in the north or
Anybody can
area
apply.
2?
If there's a bike bus that wants to be established, it's training how to use the bike, how to bike safety, to get on the bike, and then bike safety on the road, and then bike safety, just making sure you're wearing everything.
Thank you.
That can be a component of that fund.
I love that idea. I really need to remember, I want to remind us, we could give out all the helmets in the world, but if it's uncool, then nobody wants to wear it, right? So it's a cultural thing.
Mhm.
We can be the premier community that really is, give stickers out for the kids to put them on and they personalize
Yeah.
their helmet, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I
because
like that.
I have teenage sons now. I can't believe I just said that. But they always hem and haw when I make them put the helmet on because it either ruins the hair or it doesn't look cool. And I mean, at the end of the day, I don't want to get too off topic, but we need to find creative ways to really make this cool and fun and an expectation that helps. So I love this discussion. I don't want to go too off topic, but in any case, thank you.
Of course. With that, I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem moved and Councilmember Orozco seconded. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Alcala?
Aye.
Councilmember Early?
Aye.
Councilmember Roscoe?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sulpicio Hull?
Aye.
Mayor Guerrero?
Aye, this item is approved. Thank you, Stephen and team, for getting this done, and for all those in our community residents participating for your passion to get this done right. Item number 9, Councilmember Early.
Me.
All yours. Let me.
I'm assuming, Raul, you're coming up.
The item.
And is this another, just the same question as earlier? Normally,
I promise it's
protocol is
more
if
on
it's-
topic.
If it's
to make
just a
you feel any better.
question, then we can handle it that way. But if you'd like a separate presentation,
He
don't-
just has a question.
okay.
Just a couple questions.
It's
I don't need to.
consideration of affordable housing agreement with Econ Financial and Construction Company, Inc. for the Newport 13 project.
Yeah. So when reading the staff report, one of the things that I think was really highlighted was the inclusionary housing program, which obviously is near and dear to my heart. And so was just wanting to make sure I was following, because I think what's being asked here is to, instead of building the units, to actually do the in lieu.
Correct.
And I know oftentimes, I would be curious, when's the last time a developer signed up to build an inclusionary home? But I was just curious of the amount versus what would have been the number of homes built if not the in lieu was taken.
Certainly, this particular project would have had to build 6 units within the project as the affordable inclusionary housing units. So both the Liberty subdivisions and the Yarborough subdivisions, we actually incorporated a combination of affordable units within the entire subdivision and payment of in lieu fees. So we have done it fairly recently. Obviously, the construction of those units will be coming down the road. But that is always our starting point. We always start with requesting that they include units, and then we have the conversation, whether it makes sense. This particular project is fairly small compared to others, so it is more difficult to make it feasible to actually include those affordable units. The other thing to keep in mind is we are able to leverage that in lieu fee significantly more. While it would be great to have 6 additional affordable units, if we take that money and we can leverage that in lieu fee and build or have it go through a project that produces 100 units, 200 units, then we're really making that money work for us and providing additional units.
I appreciate that. And so, just so I understand, so instead of the 6 units, it is the in lieu fee or set aside. I know the numbers here. I saw it, but I don't have it readily. 458,000. I see it at the end. 458,666.
Correct.
How much is it for this project to actually? What is the cost of a door?
The cost construction actual
yeah,
units?
because I think what you said is, hey, this project is so small that it doesn't pencil out. I think that's what you're saying when you said, hey, it doesn't really make sense.
Right.
Because of the size of the project. And so I'm just curious, what is the cost of a door? Because the reason why it doesn't make sense is I'm assuming it because it doesn't pencil out.
Correct. The developer, John Treble, is here. And
Perfect.
I think he would probably have a better number for you than I can try to come up with currently. So if I can have him come up.
While we're doing that, I just kind of want to look at that from more the city side of that equation. So it's less about whether it makes the developer's project pencil. That's really not our objective here. It's about what kind of Raul led with. It's about making an efficient use of a source of funding to leverage much more funding and to create ultimately way more affordable units than we get from the 6 we get here.
I'm going to push back ever so slightly there because I appreciate that. But I think ultimately we work with the developers to figure out what makes sense for them, but ultimately it's the developer, not necessarily us per se, right? Or is it us?
No,
who
it's
is
your
deciding,
discretion. It's completely your discretion.
So,
Yes.
but it is a recommendation here that based on, I'm assuming, again, Raul, you worked with the developer to figure out like, hey, what does this make sense? Does it make sense for you to do this, right? And I'm sure if it made sense from a financial perspective to actually just build, the developer might be more willing to build if it made sense. So I think both matter. I appreciate what you're saying, which is the 400, so I'm going to round up to 500,000, will then go into a pot because it's not like we use that solely dollars, right? That 500,000, it goes into a bigger pot that allows for us to build 100 units, right? The 500,000 is not going to be what builds 100 units. It is the 500,000 from this project. It is the 500,000 from another project. It is then leveraging those dollars for state dollars that then allow us to build, those units. So I promise you, I understand that. I am curious, though. I appreciate where you're coming from, but also am curious, since it is my discretion and our discretion, how much is a door? How much is the cost of a door? Because I'm assuming that's also part of what's making in lieu versus building it.
I don't have an exact number, but if you want a rough concept like profit, the home builder makes a home, it's only about 10%. So if you're asking for 10% of our project, there is profit. That's why the state implemented a lot of more recent laws with density bonuses, concessions, waivers. None of those things are being offered. More importantly, those staff has identified, back toward leverage, benefit of those dollars that we pay in with the in lieu of fee. So if you're taking a dollar that gets the match fund, gets 100 units, because those last dollars that we're giving into the fund are the ones that are needed to get those funds. So that's how we're helping in our way, because that's what staff has identified as the biggest to you as the city and to your citizens.
Appreciate that. There's a difference, though, and I would like to highlight that because it's not necessarily like one for one. The units that we build, typically, those 100 units that you are talking about are affordable rental housing. what we are talking about with inclusionary housing typically is not rental, it is ownership. And I think that's what we'd be talking about here. And we should be clear, this is more of education for me as this is coming up, because rarely do these projects actually come up in front of us. And as Raul said, the last one that did come up before us, it was a combination of inclusionary housing and in lieu fee, right? And so more in line with what I would encourage us to do. And so, but so was curious from that perspective, if it were to be inclusionary housing in this project, it would be ownership, not necessarily when we do our kitty, it is rental that we are building. Right, Raul?
Correct. So this particular project is a single-family project. So they would have to incorporate 6 of those single-family units as the affordable units. Now, depending on the development, larger developments that are able to do both, you could fulfill the inclusionary housing requirements with either single-family or multifamily.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
All right.
That's it for me.
Would like to make a motion?
Nope.
You're looking for motion?
Yes.
I'll move.
Right. Second. Right. Madam Clerk, Mayor Pro Tem moved and Councilmember Alcala seconded. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Alcala?
Aye.
Councilmember Early?
Aye.
Councilmember Roscoe?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sulpicio Hall?
Aye.
Mayor Guerrero?
Aye. Right, this item is approved. Next, under item 11 is the city manager's, let's see, item number 11. Hold on, let me look at my agenda. Is a public hearing pursuant to Government Code Section 3502.3 for report on the City of West Sacramento, so it is the city manager's office, West Sacramento vacancies and recruitment and retention efforts. Hello, Ms. Montez.
Good evening, Mayor and member of the councils. I'm Caitlin Montez. I'm the city's Human Resources Supervisor, and I would like to welcome everybody to the public hearing pursuant to Government Code 3502.3. This session will fulfill the city's obligation for our AB 2561 reporting, which was an assembly bill that passed last September and was enacted in January 1st. The law mandates that public agencies report annually prior to a budget adoption on our vacancy levels and recruitment and retention strategies before our governing body.
You have a PowerPoint?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Are we supposed to do something?
It's fine.
I can also just read the slides.
Oh, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. So AB 2561 adds a new reporting duty under the MMBA, which requires a greater transparency and public accountability related to our staffing model. At a minimum, each agency must report our vacancy data to the public, inform and consult with our recognized bargaining units, detail current recruitment and retention efforts, and identify any changes that may negatively affect our hiring process. If a bargaining unit exceeds a 20% vacancy threshold, there are additional requirements that we would be required to produce, which is the number of applicants per role, our average time to hire, and any compensation work condition improvement plans that we could enact. We are choosing to model our data after December 31st, 2024, because that gives us, time to make sure our positions are filled. So the statistics I'm going to read off of are based on that December 31st date. At that time, we had 439.55 authorized full-time positions with 46 vacancies amongst all of our citywide. So that includes 5 bargaining units as well as our unrepresented employee groups. I did have a slide to show all of the percentages of our bargaining units, but it's important to note that none of them met that 20% threshold. So we, as a city, are doing very well in terms of our recruitment and retention efforts. At the time of that December 31st, the slide would show that the Firefighters Association, yes, there is a chart in the staff report as well. But it would show that our Firefighters Association had a 17.74 vacancy rate. That is because 2 weeks later, 11 fire recruits started the fire academy and they were staffed very quickly. It also had a 9.68% vacancy rate for the POA, Police Officers Association, and that is because at that time, 5 police officers were designated unfunded. That has recently changed, and I believe we are close to having fully authorized sworn staffing right now between the academy as well as on-patrol officers. So again, none of the bargaining units triggered the additional 20% threshold. So with those 46 vacancies, 10.47% was our citywide vacancy rate, with 7.43 being represented positions. And so all of our represented groups were sent the information as well. They were also given the opportunity to speak. None of them did respond to that request. So part of the things that we are doing to kind of modernize our recruitment process here at the city is we're utilizing technology. We're expanding our offerings with NeoGov and utilizing the NeoGov Attract module, which improves our visibility and our job reach and allows us to kind of direct source candidates based on their experience, their certificates. We're doing that with the police department, being able to search for lateral applicants, as well as our hard-to-fill positions. I will add that we have had a building inspector vacant for 3 years, and utilizing NeoGov Attract, we were finally able to staff that position based on our direct sourcing with that. We've also improved our time to hire metrics, and we're reviewing them to see where any bottlenecks may exist within our hiring process. And I have my slides now. We also have enacted blind screening. So we are hiding candidates' personally identifiable information. So that way, when departments are screening their applicants, they do not see a name, they do not see the geographical location where they live. They also don't see their schools that they went to as well. We're also expanding our social media outreach using LinkedIn, as well as partnering with our PIO team to make sure our social media outreach is there. So not only are we evaluating how we're bringing candidates in, but we want to make sure that we are supporting the current employees that work here. And we are strengthening our workforce retention and engagement with 3 of our 5 bargaining units now have multi-year contracts in place, which provides wage stability and predictability through and beyond fiscal year 2025. The 2 units are currently in negotiations or have expiring contracts in 2025. The city has reinstated its Leadership Academy, and professional development opportunities are promoted throughout the city. We also offer flexible work arrangements, including remote work, as well as alternative schedules where operationally feasible. And we have started a renewed focus on employee wellness and recognition, which fosters engagement and reduces turnover. So obviously this data is a point in time based on December 31st. It is constantly a moving target though. So with the addition of Measure O positions and the one we're constantly trying to evaluate, make sure we're appropriately staffing, as well as doing it in a timely manner. And so the city is committed to continuously evaluating our hiring and retention strategies, monitoring outcomes and gaining feedback, whether it's from our applicants or our internal employees, as well as supporting a superior workforce that reflects West Sacramento's values and our continuous efforts to improve. So I will take any questions that I may answer for you.
Councilmember Call.
Thank you. On the blind screening of personally identifiable information, how is equity in hiring achieved that?
So Human Resources still has access to all information, and so we screen strictly based off the minimum qualifications for the position, and then we review every single resume that the blind PII has applied to it. So it's essentially a number that the that our hiring managers are seeing. So it is a complete even playing field that, you know, regardless of name, location, college that they attended for affiliation, the hiring manager doesn't see any of that. So it's a very equitable process.
Okay, I guess what I'm trying to say in terms of equity, I mean, one of the things that I wanted to see when we got on this council, making certain that we had representation of the demographics here.
So not necessarily a part of this, but the city with Human Resources has started to publish our annual report, which does review all of our applicant demographics as well as our internal city demographics. And then we also conduct pay equity studies related to gender, ethnicity, and the different various levels that the position or the employees hold at the city.
Okay,
of course.
Any other questions? Well, it's good to hear we're below the 20. It's great news.
Absolutely.
May I?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
With your first presentation here, I couldn't let you go without a question. On the Supportive work environments. Do we do an annual survey to employees?
That is not something that we have done in my tenure here. Prior to me joining the city, it is my understanding that surveys were done. The city kind of took the point of, yes, we can get this information, but if we're not prepared to do anything with it, not necessarily what is the point, but essentially what is the point. And so that is not something we have brought back with employee engagement surveys.
Well, that is a good point. I think we need to put that on the list of things to chat about in the.
So
in the
I
strategic
will
plan.
say, while we haven't done necessarily employee engagement surveys, in the past, prior to budget adoption, at least for unrepresented employee groups, because obviously represented have the bargaining capacity, we have elicited feedback from them in survey formats to see what is important to them when management is kind of developing the budget for unrepresented benefit summaries.
Right. What's the attrition rate?
I believe we are at about a 7%. I don't have the information in front of me. It is published in our 2025 annual report that is on our website.
Okay.
It has trended down over the last 3 years.
Oh, good. Oh, then, we don't need a survey.
I mean,
We do exit interviews, though, with our employees. So Human Resources is available to meet in person, as well as we have a digital format if they're not comfortable doing that.
Yes, Councilmember Early.
So appreciate the employee survey question, Mayor Pro Tem. I completely agree with you. Don't ask questions you aren't prepared to do anything with. 100%. But if you're going to go on a wellness journey, if you're going to try to put things in place for your employees, it might be helpful to know, one, if those are things that they want, right, that you're putting into place. And then as you are putting them in place, how is that going, right? Like, is it actually responding to the needs of your staff? One, I mean, it's just an ROI, right? What's the point of spending money on something that your employees are like, that's actually not what I want for my wellness. And so I agree with our mayor that I don't know if that's something that we'd actually put on a strategic plan or if that's something that we could give you feedback on that, potentially the survey that you could ask are questions that maybe you could do something about.
Absolutely. I wouldn't disagree with you with that. I think we definitely still do a very kind of informal solicitation. We're very in touch with kind of the employees and we have conversations with them of if things are working, and we do kind of adapt as we go if we find that we can expand on things.
Great. Thank you.
Up here. Can receive report. Do we need to take any action on this?
I believe it's just to open the public comment or public hearing.
So I'll open it up for public comment, Madam Clerk. Are there any requests to speak?
We have no request to speak at this public hearing.
I'm closing public comment, bringing it back to council for any additional questions. No? I know this is a mandatory thing. We got to
Correct.
think doing it. Of
course.
All right. I think we're
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you. Next is item 12 under community development, a public hearing and consideration of the first reading of ordinance 25-7 regarding proposed annual omnibus zoning amendments to Title 17 of the municipal code. And Daniel Baruman. Our screen's not working for the AV person back there. I don't know what happened, but we'll just look at the big screen.
Oh, okay. It's going to be like we're in a movie.
Meeting's over.
Nope, not like we're in a movie. Does your mic work?
I think so. If I can do it in the,
You read your notes in the dark?
I'll hold it. Here you go. Oh, I was just about to get my flashlight down.
All right, well, we'll see if the PowerPoint comes up. But if not, I can certainly go off.
Oh, we would love that.
We're all there now.
Gotcha. All right, well, good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Daniel Baroon, a senior planner for the city, and I'll be presenting on the annual Omnibus Zoning Code Amendments.
The zoning code requires periodic updates to keep up with changes both locally and statewide. Planners treat the code as a living document, and our aim is to improve it where we can, which means incorporating applicable changes in state law and hearing from city staff and the community to better serve residents of West Sacramento. Here we go. A total of 11 proposed sections of the code to be amended be seen here this evening. So I'll briefly go through these proposed amendments, starting with number 1, allowing multifamily projects with at least 10% of on-site affordable units to be constructed in the mixed-use neighborhood commercial zone, or MUNC zone. And the proposal would be to permit these units by right. Currently, they're only allowed through a conditional use permit. Number 2, allowing 2-unit dwellings or duplexes to be permitted in the R1 zone. This change is based on SB 9, which became effective in 2022. Number 3 is removing minimum lot depth with a width ratio, which comes from development standard tables for the agricultural, residential, commercial, mixed use, and employment zones. So we'll be taking the minimum lot depth and width ratio out. Number 4 is correcting a minor grammatical error in the findings section of the use permit chapter. Number 5 is requiring the recordation of 0 lot line agreements to be fully executed. Number 6, including minimum unit densities in residential zones consistent with the general plan. I'll come back to that one just a little bit later. Number 7 is clarifying the summary of review authorities and decisions of appeals. Number 8, establishing increased noticing requirements for ordinances and amendments involving real property in compliance with AB 2904. Number 9, updating land use classification and definitions for construction and material yards. Number 10, updating definitions of lot area, clarifying the use of gross acreage for size and density. And then lastly, number 11, updating definitions for outdoor storage and parking lots and structures to exclude the parking of semi-trailer trucks. This action tonight is exempt from CEQA review pursuant to 15305, minor alterations in land use limitations, and 15321, enforcement actions by regulatory agencies. Also, on May 1st, 2025, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on the omnibus zoning code amendments. Following the public hearing, the Planning Commission decided to vote 4-0 to approve staff recommendations with one noted revision. The revision is now incorporated in ordinance reflected in table 17.08.030 for amendment item number 6. With that, staff respectfully recommends that the City Council conduct the public hearing, find that the action is exempt from CEQA, and consider the adoption of amendments to Title 17 of the Muni Code through the annual omnibus zoning code amendments. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you, Daniel. Bringing it back to council for any questions? No questions, open it up for public comment. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
We have no request to speak on item 12.
All right, request bringing it back to council. Any more comments or a motion to approve?
Hello. I'll second.
Okay, Councilmember Orozco moved and Mayor Pro Tem Spizioho seconded. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Acala.
Aye.
Councilmember Early.
Aye.
Councilmember Roscoe.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sulpicio Hall.
Aye.
Mayor Guerrero.
Aye. All right, thank you
Thanks
so
so
much,
much.
Daniel. Next is our regular agenda, item 13, which is consideration of resolution 25-49, adopting the climate action and adaptation plan. Mr. Seamus Laffey?
Yes, good evening.
Very important presentation.
So I'm joined with Ryan Burnett. He's our sustainability manager and also our consultant ACOM. It's a team effort for this climate action adaptation plan. Go next slide. So tonight I'll get into our recommended action, an overview of the climate action and adaptation plan, context of what greenhouse gas emissions are and how many we have in the city, what we did for community outreach, and then I'll get into our proposed actions, and then also how are we going to implement the climate action adaptation plan. So tonight we're asking council to adopt resolution 25-49, which would adopt the cap, and then also find that the adoption of the cap is within the scope of the general plan EIR pursuant to section 15168 of the CEQA guidelines. So really to start off, this cap is a roadmap to reduce greenhouse gas emissions within the city. It is to strengthen local climate adaptation and resiliency in an equitable manner, and also provide streamlining for future development projects. In CEQA, greenhouse gas emissions are analyzed, so having a cap that development projects can streamline off of provides a lot of benefits to our development community. I really want to highlight this is not, the cap is not the city's first step towards addressing climate change. As one of the previous items tonight, having more active transportation is one of the things that the city has done. More climate-friendly transportation, providing EV chargers, providing more flood protection for the city, and also creating our waterfront district, which has more sustainable development, where you don't have to take your car to get everywhere. So really, this is not the city's first attempt at climate change. It's really kind of formally formulating those other projects and goals and initiatives that are already occurring. So to start this effort, there was an inventory done in 2018. This was the best base year when this effort started really during COVID. So we wanted a good, accurate count of where the city's emissions are coming from. So as you can see here on the screen, 58% of the emissions in the city are coming from on-road vehicles. So people commuting to work, going to school, those kinds of trips. 18% come from commercial energy. That's building energy. Office building, how do you heat it and cool it? Where is that energy being sourced from? And then 12% is residential energy. Same thing, if you're using natural gas in your home to heat your home, that's about 12% of the city's emissions. And then going down from there, we have off-road vehicles like forklifts, and then waterborne, and then compost, and then kind of go down from there in the smaller chunks of the pie. So really what you can see here is the main source of emissions in the city are vehicles and the energy to heat and cool our homes and buildings. So if we don't do anything, where will the emissions go from the baseline 2018? They would increase by 6% by 2030 and 20% by 2045. So there are two targets in our cap. One is an interim target of 2030, and then the other is long-term 2045. And the long-term target is to be carbon neutral, and that's consistent with state targets. And the interim target, we have a minimum and an ambitious target. And you can see here the minimum is 25% emission reduction from 2018, and then the ambitious is 43% reduction from 2018. And I want to distinguish, that's per capita, so we recognize the city is growing. So it's not an overall emissions, it's per capita that we're really looking at. So when we say carbon neutrality, what does that mean? It really means the state of, it's net zero, but we might have some remaining emissions, and how do you offset that? So here is a chart showing where the city would go at the current rate of emissions, and then if you were to take into account the actions proposed tonight, which is the green dashed line, you can see that that's going down, and then we have our minimum and ambitious target. So you can see the minimum is in orange, and then the more ambitious in gray. So you can see here that even if we were to implement all the actions before you tonight in the cap, we're still not at net zero, or carbon neutral, sorry. It reduces them 79%, but there's still a remaining gap, and that we'd have to figure out ways in the future to get that all the way to carbon neutral. So the state is doing a lot in addressing climate change. AB 1279 requires California to be achieve net zero by 2045. So this cap is consistent with state targets. There are a lot of state mandates that have been coming out in the last few years. Electricity needs to come from carbon-free sources by 2045. As you probably aware, all new homes have to have solar. There's requirements from CARB on transportation that new vehicles sold by 2035 need to be free of greenhouse gas emissions. There are targets for fleets, which affects the city as well, for making sure that we have our fleet has electric vehicles. The building code is updated every 3 years, so the next code cycle, it's adopted in effect in 2026. That's getting more stringent, so really making that in there's requirements for electric heat pumps and for making sure that buildings are electric ready, so that when they do transition over to not having natural gas, they can do it. And then we also have waste requirements on food recovery coming down from the state. So there's been a lot of outreach for the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. Really, the outreach started during COVID. We had virtual workshops in 2021. We had 2 Earth Day events that were virtual and in person. We met with the Chamber of Commerce initially when we were developing these goals, and then also again earlier this year to provide the entire document for their input. We also had 2 listening sessions at Sal's Tacos back in 2022, really hearing from the community, outside on what they want. And I think the overall kind of feedback we got is to go big, be more ambitious. We're not doing enough, but I think that's probably to be expected because you're getting more advocates at these kinds of events. We also had multiple commission meetings where we received feedback on our initial goals and actions, and then we had community-based organization meetings. So a lot of outreach. This document has also been circulated throughout city departments multiple times for feedback, gone through multiple iterations based off the feedback provided. Oh, and we did provide translation services for this as well. So really want to show what's proposed here is doable. So we feature local climate champions. We have 5 local climate champions in this document. 2 of them are highlighted here on the screen. We have Nugget Market. They have a food recovery program. Also CalSTRS, they're an office over along the waterfront, and they have a net zero energy and LEED Platinum building, and they have a very ambitious goal of being carbon neutral, and their new building that they just completed recently is LEED Platinum. We also featured a local resident, showing what you can do as a local resident, what you can do if you're not a big corporation or business. So getting into the goals, we have 7 overarching goals. The first one is to promote cleaner vehicles and equipment in our community. And this really, there's follow-on actions under each goal, but what this is encouraging and incentivizing electric vehicles. The second goal is reimagining how we move people and goods. So really, how do we make active transportation easier, walking, cycling? We heard about that earlier tonight. 3 is designing a future with zero carbon power sources. This is really relying on our utility provider to source their power from clean sources. We recognize, that this is a partnership, but that is something that is needed for the city to get carbon neutrality by 2045, is for all that power to be coming from clean sources. The 4th goal, plan for all electric buildings citywide. Going back to that pie chart showing that, building energy use does have greenhouse gas emissions associated with it. So how can those be reduced in a way that doesn't prevent, development in the city? The 5th one, create a waste-free city. Really, looking at the emissions that come from, if you throw out your green waste, we want to make sure that those methane emissions don't go into the atmosphere. 6, building carbon negative and livable communities. Providing more trees in the city. Those provide multiple benefits. And then the last one is creating a resilient community to protect our most vulnerable residents from climate hazards. And this was added on more recently in the CAP. Really adaptation and resiliency, recognizing that climate change is happening, it's going to get worse. And even if the city does its part, it's a worldwide problem. And how do we adapt and become more resilient? So document really is all about voluntary action first. A lot of education, outreach, and providing incentives. There's a lot of funding sources for doing some of these actions, and that's provided as an appendix. So really incentivizing our community, and also leading by example, such as the city. We have a lot of EV chargers out in our parking lot. We have solar, leading by example. And then lastly, unfortunately, mandates may be needed, but really trying to go with those first three first: voluntary action and leading by example. So here's what each action looks like. We have 26 actions. You can see that there's an action title and description. It estimates how much GHG reductions are estimated, both by our 2030 and then by 2045. There's examples of what you can do if you're a resident or a business owner. How can you help, implement this action? There's equity considerations, so that's been identified as what kind of issues are there for each action, and then how can we solve that? Really recognizing that some of our community, they might not be able to afford a lot of what's in here, or they come from a community that's more disadvantaged, and they're going to bear the brunt of a lot of climate changing. If you have a record heat event, you can't afford air conditioning. How do we help them out? Or if you have a lot of smoke from a wildfire and they can't afford air filters, how can the city help? And then we also have other implementation tactics and metrics, really to measure our progress meeting these actions. So these are the top 5 actions in terms of emission reduction. So the first one is expanding our electric vehicle charging network, really incentivizing and getting more electric vehicles on the road. Action 13 is developing and adopting a building electrification program. I want to highlight too, these are actions in the CAP, but they will all require follow-on ordinances, workshops, outreach. So this is not just immediately going to happen. It's each one of these is going to require a lot more work. Going through here, action 11, enhancing our utility coordination, going back to where is our power coming from and making sure it's coming from a clean power source. And then action 14 is establishing energy performance standards, making sure that our buildings are they're really efficient. And then lastly, the top 5, rounding out the top 5 is mandating all electric new construction, but in a phased approach, really starting off with your suburban greenfield development, and not really doing this first with infill, where we don't want to impede infill development or the development community as a whole. So those are the top 5 actions. And I'll turn it over to Ryan Burnett. He's our sustainability manager, and he'll go into implementation.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Ryan Burnett. I'm the sustainability manager for the city of West Sacramento. I have been with the city for 10 years in 2 months. For most of that time, it's been water conservation, doing house calls. About a year ago, I became the sustainability manager. And one of the reasons I chose to become a manager was because of the climate action plan. So before I jump into my slides, I just want to communicate that it's my intention to make this place my career, and I'm very excited to make the climate action plan not only a well-made document, but a meaningful and real document. So when I became manager, in anticipation of the climate action plan coming to you, I started working on primary and secondary and contributor responsibilities for each of the 26 actions, because as I'm sure you all know, when everyone is responsible, no one's in charge. And a lot of these projects can overlap very easily across departments and divisions. So myself and my teammate Reza have been meeting with the building, planning. We're going to be meeting with the city manager's office, all throughout the city, making sure that people agree who the primary and secondary responsibility is for each of these 26 actions, so this doesn't just disappear and remain an aspirational document. So we've gone through more than half of them already, so I've got color coding for each of the different divisions, and it's almost all the way filled up. So I'm very excited to get this launched. Secondly, as we've been meeting with the different divisions, we've also been using those metrics that Seamus mentioned and asked for any current metrics for those programs now. For example, when we reached out to parks, we acknowledged that they've already built trails, they've already converted areas of grass to mulch. And so when the climate action plan is launched, what we want to make sure is that the website isn't just blank, it showcases the stuff we've already done. So we're currently gathering data to show that we're already on the way to meeting some of our metrics already. Something else that we are very excited about is upon launch of the Climate Action Plan, Raisa and I are working on a free home energy audit program. So you guys get a lot of complaints about utility bills. We want to frame the Climate Action Plan as something that can help people lower their utility bills. In fact, we're currently working with a high school youth organization, and they're doing a pilot project for us to create a home energy kit. So they're going to do research and figure out exactly what materials would work best to give to people for free. So we would get an iPad, we would go to parks events, we'd sign people up, and then we'd show up at your door and we'd give you light bulbs, weatherization, aerators, things that can meaningfully reduce your bill over time. And, you know, I've done 700 house calls throughout the city, so I'm, you know, very familiar with being professional, and we know how intimidating something like this can be. So just like in my time with water, people can be mystified by what they can do, and the reality is properly sorting your trash and, you know, signing up for a home energy audit can make meaningful impact. You don't all have to buy a Tesla. So I'm excited about launching that program. And then finally, I am also working on something called the West Sac Climate Champ. So we were talking before, you guys were talking before about how helmets aren't cool. I'm going to try to make climate change and climate action cool. So we're going to come up with cool stickers. We're going to do outreach. And the thinking behind it is there's a lot of people that have already made efforts buying solar, changing habits around their house, going to heat pumps, converting things from gas to electric, but also behavior change makes a big difference as well. And I want to celebrate those people because a lot of those actions happen in the dark. So if you have purchased a vehicle or if you've done something in your home that you're proud of doing for the sake of climate action, then you get a sticker and you can put it on your house and on your car. And the other hope of that would be with our environmental services newsletters, if someone is willing, then we would highlight them as a climate champ. So I'm really trying to frame this as a very positive and energetic and empowering component of the city. I want to make sure that it's realistic but also exciting because it's a pretty serious topic and it's easy to get into the negative. And I feel like it's kind of my job to be the cheerleader and to make sure that we do make these changes but make them as positively as possible. Okay. So, having said all that, in the implementation side, we have two phases and priority actions within those two phases. So, phase one would take this suite of actions and prioritize them towards implementation. One of them expanding, so action one, expanding the electric charging network through zoning code requirements and installation of public charging infrastructure. We've already seen that that is already happening in the city. We would pursue state grants to get funding to expand that work that transportation and mobility started. Action 5, establish zero-emission vehicle targets for the municipal fleet. We're actually currently in the process of working with Yolo County to develop a zero-emission vehicle action plan. So as I've said before, some of these things are already on their way. So we're working with them. We're getting an inventory of our entire municipal fleet, determining which vehicles need to be phased out, determining where the charging stations need to go. And as an update on that topic, we have pursued a grant to get a charging station installed at the Courtyard on the South River Road so that we can lead by example, so that people can see city fleet that are electrified to create the normalization process. Action 8, allocate funding to expand and connect the active transportation and micromobility network. So that ties into the zero topic that was mentioned before. We really want to make sure that we increase the capacity for just getting around the city without having to use a car. Action 18, expand the food recovery network to collect edible food from businesses. So as the manager of the waste management contract, I'm very familiar with SB 1383, the organics requirements. I have two superstars on my team, Susan and Rachel. We have met and exceeded our SB 1383 requirements so far. And we have been working with partners like the YOLO Food Bank, Nugget, and Mercy Coalition to make sure that excess food doesn't go into the dumpster, but it goes real people in need. So we are already taking action on that, and we look forward to continuing. Action 20, develop and implement an urban forest management plan, master plan, so that would be with Parks Department. And then Action 22, integrate climate adaptation across city operations, processes, and policies. So on the previous slide, I mentioned that I've been working division by division on who specifically is responsible for each of these 26 actions. And my goal would be, once we get that established, I would create what I would call a super duper team across the city of people who will be in charge of climate action implementation. And from that super team, we would create smaller cohorts that have overlapping priorities and responsibilities. So then phase 2, which be years 1 through 5, are more on the planning and long-term strategy priorities. So mandating all electric new construction in a phased approach, as Seamus mentioned before. We want to balance it so that we do take climate change seriously, but we also make sure that we still get development happening in the city. Action 13, develop and adopt electrification program and incentivize for existing buildings. Action 11, enhance utility coordination, advocate for the city's utility provider to provide access to carbon-free electricity and additional building efficiency, retrofit rebates and fundings. In fact, I actually met with PG&E today, and we received a wonderful presentation with them and are looking forward to working with them closer, like we work with WM. WM does a lot of outreach material, and there are a lot of great programs that people can participate in through WM, like the bulky waste pickup or the medicine pickup or the side yard pickup. And I want to create a relationship with PG&E on this component so that people can take advantage of the rebates. And when we do that home energy audit, we can log people into their PG&E portal. So it was a great conversation we had today, and we look forward to working with them more. And then Action 9, extend regional transit services and allocate funding to increase accessibility, frequency, and reliability of public transit. So this would be transportation and mobility. I think they're rock stars. They've gotten millions of dollars for the city, so they'll continue their work on that. So what are the next steps? As we see from the 2025 strategic priority, climate action is at the top, as well as adopting the climate action plan, which is what we're doing tonight. So this would be an easy thing to check off that list. So what we're asking is for adoption of Resolution 2549 to implement the climate action and adaptation plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Bringing it back to council. Actually, let me just allow for one public speaker. Madam Clerk, I'm going to open it up for public comment.
Peter Blando.
Peter, my fellow Rotarian. You hung in there.
Thank you. Peter Blando. I'm actually serve in the one of your commission, the Environment and Utilities Commission. And I was told, go over here to promote this, and I think the city should definitely adopt it. We had an opportunity, I think it wasn't in the PowerPoint, but we had an opportunity to review this a couple months ago, I believe, and we provided a lot of input during that time. So personally, my personal input as not a commissioner, as a citizen here is, I think the challenge is more on the action plan as the voluntary component, which is the city could do all it can with electric vehicles, but the challenge would be how do you get other people to convert and do that. And I think it was brought up in our meetings, at the commission meeting at the time. There's a lot of other issues that community members have that may not be at the top of their list. And they may be stressed with other things they may not be able to afford, like an e-vehicle. What can they do? And the other thing that was not mentioned that we saw in the report was that 50% of your residents are, I think that was the report, are renters. So what incentives do they have in some of these things if they are renting because they don't own the property, and what can they do to make adjustments? In that case, maybe that's the focus of the city to look at mandates or anything else that says, or incentives then to the landlords. What should they do? Because certainly there's no incentive for them because they're not paying the bill for electricity, for example. The renters are. So what's their incentive to add better insulation, change light bulbs, change a whole bunch of other things? So that needs to be considered. And finally, one of the things that, as I listen to other agenda items here and other actions, I think part of the committee, part of the council should consider how all the other decisions align with the climate action plan. So just as an initial example, your Vision Zero presentation earlier, part of it is to making walking safety better. It would be nice if there's safer biking, then that incentivizes biking and walking, and you have better paths. So those are things that to consider in new buildings. I think the Pheasant Club change, like part of it, the question is, how can I bike there? Can I walk there? Can it have amenities or whatever it is that encourages e-vehicles and has solar or something that's environmental? That's it.
Thank you, Peter. All right, closing the public comment. No other speakers, Madam Clerk?
We have no additional requests to speak on item 13.
Okay, thank you. Closing public comment, bringing it back to council. So who's going to come up and answer? Well, I guess both of you will. Any questions among the council members?
Yeah.
Yes.
I do.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you very much. This is an incredible, and obviously a ton of work has gone into it. I think what's a lot of times when information is presented to us, it's very heavy and hard to understand. This is an incredibly easy to understand document, and loved the climate champions. It was so nice to see Joe Wood highlighted. I think that personalizing these stories really makes a difference. The very specific implementation tactic that we're going to use, very thought out. It was lovely to read. I will be a cheerleader like Ryan and just support this wholeheartedly. But I do have one question. We talked just a little bit about our urban forest master plan. And one of the implementation tactics is maintain the health of existing trees by promoting community stewardship programs and support tree management, care, and removal through education, volunteerism, and workforce development. I'm not sure if what I'm speaking about would fall into that bucket, but a very large portion of District 4 sits in the state streets, and we have a lot of heritage oak trees and folks on fixed incomes that have difficulty maintaining their trees. When we talk about these programs, is there opportunity for funding to support members of the community for maintenance of their trees?
So our Parks Department is working on an urban forest master plan right now. I think that could be a part of it. How do we, maintain the trees, and if you have a tree on private property, how is that maintained? So I think that's something that definitely could be explored as part of that effort.
Thank you. Oh, actually, one last thing, and I'm so sorry, I know it's getting late. The cool thing about this is all of this work that's done with the goal of reducing greenhouse gases. There are all these byproducts that created. People are riding their bikes more. They're personally more healthy. There's more people on the streets. Tomorrow at the State of the City, I'm going to give an award for a family that creates a haunted house every year on Benton Street. And when they were looking to move to West Sacramento, looking to move and buy their first home, they drove a bunch of communities. And when they came to West Sacramento, the neighborhood that they looked at this house in, people were riding their bikes, walking around, and they knew that they wanted to start a family and they wanted to be an active family too, so they chose Sacramento. And for the past 8 years, they've been creating this incredible haunted house for our community, and they're winning an award for it tomorrow. And it all started because they were inspired when they came to a community because they saw people walking and biking. The byproducts of all of this and some of the very specific action plans, funding for active transportation and micromobility network, create a community that people want to live in, they want to stay, they want to invest in, and it just creates a wonderful place for so many folks to call home. And so it's going to be really exciting as this all builds out and we continue to see this across all the departments, and you have the super team working on this. From enhancing our trails to better lighting on the Clarksburg Trail so we can ride our bikes to the new Pheasant Club property. It's just going to create just an incredible space for our community. So as we're thinking about what this means in the long run, it's going to be a better place for all of us. And somehow we'll make helmets cool too. I don't know how that's going to happen, but you're tasked with that.
Anybody else? Yes, Councilmember Akala.
3 quick questions, and I agree, this is just such an outstanding plan that you have. When I read through it, I was just like, wow, they answered every question I could have come up. Industrial truck. How do are we putting that into the formula? People come in from the outside, to the different shopping areas and stuff from other areas that don't have the mindset that we do. Are you figuring that into the formula for how much we can achieve by 2045?
Yeah, so semi-trucks, industrial, that was accounted for in the inventory, and we do have actions related to how do we work with the business community and our warehouses to convert those over to electric. I've seen a few of them around town. They're in the Pepsi, Tesla semi, so it is doable, and there are actions that are addressing that.
Yeah, you said that the governor, and I guess, has in his plan to do things like that. There was a part where you talked about density of new developments, and you're talking about infill housing, but I know we're going to have some proposed developments coming up. They're going to be over 3,000 houses. Is that also filtered in to the calculations that you have?
Yeah, so we did the baseline year was 2018, so we looked at emissions that were existing in that year, and then the target is per capita, so it's per person. So the city could grow in population, we could have more emissions in total, but we're looking at how many emissions per person. So we're really trying to reduce the amount of emissions per person. So those new development projects, they had environmental documents with them, air resources, air quality, greenhouse gas emissions, those were all accounted for in those development projects. The build out of those will be 15, 20 years. They'll have to follow the building code in effect. And that building code, every code cycle is updated, and the state is very aggressive in meeting this 2045 carbon neutrality goal.
So the new houses that are going in, all the new development, as of now, they have to have the solar? Or is there?
Yeah, they have to meet the building code requirement, which is having solar.
And then at the ZEV fleet to the city, what is our plan to transition? How many years is it going to take?
Our public works department, I believe, is working on a fleet transition plan, looking at the whole fleet. What's the life cycle of the vehicle, and then when it does come up, a new vehicle needs to be purchased, where does it come from? That is part of this document. How do we transition the city fleet and also meet the state requirements, which are becoming more aggressive and requiring the fleet, your fleet vehicles be EV.
Council members here have mentioned how you really have to change the culture of thinking to make things much more, people much more receptive to this. And after watching this plan, I think you guys can do it.
Anybody else? Oh, Councilmember Rose.
Over the last 9 years, I've seen a variety of presentations having to do with, and it's crazy how over that 9 years, this is all coming into some type of framework. I remember several years ago asking whether or not West Sac Police Department could implement purely electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles. And of course, there's complications with that. There's power issues and the longevity of the vehicle when it comes to even the availability of charging stations. But with that stated, we're on the cusp of lots of new ideas as we look for the future of our city, and perhaps there would be a someday when our vehicles all throughout the city are powered with electric vehicles. I know that some already were already, embracing that. But we, as Councilmember College mentioned, and I said earlier, culture change is a big deal. And we have a variety of different lenses in this city and people with different, frames of mind when it comes to this and many other issues. I'll just share that personally, this matter has changed for me in the way I view the world we live in, because, we only all get this one world. And when we talk about how we get people excited about changing the complexion of our community, I think it really boils down to personal interest. I don't know, for me, it's longevity. You're buying every moment. So I think about clean air in a different way than I ever did before. I care for my children. I think about exercise, and I think about walking around the city and being safe, feeling healthy and breathing clean air and connecting with neighbors. And I think that we've made these incremental investments throughout the city in order to really try and push our community forward in that sense, including, again, reference to the most recent, the Sycamore Trail overpass that's helping to connect these trails. And hopefully I know we will have many more in the future years. But I think about okay, well, how would I inspire a relative that's on limited income to want to, be inspired by climate action, planning accordingly? And I think that oftentimes people are really price sensitive too. We're all being killed from energy companies that are probably one of the biggest bills next to our mortgage, right? So how do we as a city approach making those affordable? I know that there are a lot of renters, right? But we have homeowners, very many homeowners in this community that would probably buy solar if it were a little bit more affordable and accessible. So how do we as a community share in the resources so that we make every home with solar panels? How do we build capacity or have partnerships with, you're just looking at unique and creative ways to help all of us move together in the same direction, so there's not only a certain group of people that are able to afford these changes, but rather all of us. And I'm sure that there's some genius out there that's not me who's thought about this, and I'm really excited. I just got to say one more thing, is that I'm pleased to know we have a green job on staff, and I hope that we move forward with more of that. Having I already forgot the title. Sustainability. Thank you. I was going with resiliency, pretty close. But, we're trying to maximize this impact while we have the opportunity to do so. And it's not about just us, it's about our future generations here in the city. And again, we have moved from one complexion to another already, being a port city, having huge vehicles traveling in and out. That's why a lot of folks want to do business in West Sacramento, because we have an ingress and egress very quickly from the highway. But as we move away potentially to other types of ways of moving throughout this city, really thinking about what we can do for the futures, or the children that are moving throughout the city, and creating that space for them. I'm just very excited, and thank you so much for the optimism today.
Councilmember Early?
I'm good.
Okay. Well, thank you two for this monumental task, climate action. As a climate mayor myself, attended, a couple of COPs, and have learned a lot about what's out there in the world. And climate change, I don't know if you've been seeing all those tornadoes and, just the floods, and everything happening around the world. And it's possible here, right in the Sacramento Bee, that Sacramento could be completely flooded too someday. And it's going to lose a ton of real estate. And, we had a, Kimber talk about floods happening here and the impact that could happen. It's all real. I don't take it lightly. But that's the impact of climate change. And your report here is making an effort to reduce that impact, which I appreciate. And I appreciate your presentation tonight. Just for the AV person, our screens are not working, so we had to take a look out there. And usually it's easier for us to look on our screen. But you have a lot of great recommendations, and I think we can go further. I think that there are opportunities like Rock the Block, where we can weatherize homes, where we could have worked all along with PG&E, yet we've kept them at arm's length for a while, in doing the free home energy audit program, where we could have been asking homeowners, renters, anybody, because I think they all qualify, what do we need to do to help your home get weatherized? Now, I initially started off with the solar panel project, but the challenge that Rock the Block had with that solar panel installation project was the roofs. The roofs were compromised, and Rock the Block would not cover that. And that's what the challenge is going to be in older homes, is if you don't have a proper roof, then you can't install a solar panel. For some of our renters, they do have solar panels, and it's a matter of breaking down the cost among all those tenants. And not everyone is happy how those costs are broken down, from what I've heard. So I myself have met with PG&E CEO, Patty, and have connected with her. And I know she's connected with all of you, and I've tried to connect her with the city manager, and we've got ideas. And I'll be presenting more of those ideas comparable to what you described here today. So I will be doing, in partnership with you, what we can do. In addition to that, continuing to find financing and other resources so that we can implement it here. One of the, through COP 29, was been able to secure $50,000 and $100,000. However, the challenge was, and again, if whatever you need, you have an ambitious plan. So whatever you need, again, to you, as I've raised to an earlier staff person, in resources, please let us know, because in this Bloomberg pilot, not pilot, but the Bloomberg grant, where youth did tap out all $50,000 and spent it. And it's California Breathe who's implementing it on our behalf. And through California Breathe, we, with the 100,000, now is our second round, and that's ongoing right now. We've expanded it to Yolo County. So I'm tapping UC Davis and tapping Sac City to see, what we can do to have them participate in the grant program. But whatever we can do to partner, especially with PG&E, because we're going to do pretty much the same thing that you described here, the home energy audit program, but also with our businesses to find out what we can do to reduce their costs, whether it be kitchen appliances that are outdated and need to be modernized with lower energy, appliances. When we take a look at our small business accelerator program, or anything that they may need to help reduce their energy costs. I know Hebrew's Cafe was one of the cafes when I remember a news interviewer asked for somebody, and I said, Hebrews, they have, their bills are just high. And so they did interview, and he had, an opportunity to share how expensive it is. So I think, like Hebrews, their son, his windows face the sun, and he has his shades, and he explained to me that this is what keeps my, coffee shop cool. And I remember there was a situation where somebody called on code enforcement to get rid of the shades, but the city did a great job working it out and helping that restaurant, keep the shades on. But I will say that I think we have businesses, if you to include them here in the energy audit, because that's what I'm going to be working on, and also working with the chambers to bring them in, help them with resources or with grants, so that the businesses have other resources. But But all this to say that, I personally would like to partner with the city to do more, to do what we can do to help all the residents get access to, I think what the city is, through Rock the Block or through PG&E, who's interested in partnering with all of us. Just the other day in Sacramento, I went to the filming to watch The Memory of Darkness, Light, and Ice. So it's a professor who made this movie about Greenland and the melting and the history behind that. And I'm going to be having it viewed here at our Black Box Theater. And usually when I host an event, I welcome anybody in the city, and I don't get a lot of city participation. I can't figure out why that happens. But a couple of us on council, experience that. But I welcome you to join and participate, because I will be welcoming the rest of the county and other electeds to sit in and join to participate. Because I'd like for all of us, because this is going to be what Suzanne Reed had told me, and she's our Yolo County climate representative. She said, Martha, in today's situation at the federal level, what we have left sometimes is storytelling, continue to carry over until we have an opportunity to have the financing and the ability to carry on what we are doing today. So we need to continue to remind people the impact of climate change in order for us to stick to our goals in, reducing, what our carbon footprint is causing today. So in your outreach and in what you're doing and what I'm doing separately, and, I do, stay in, I do keep the city manager in the loop in everything that I'm doing, and continue to push this on, independently. So I appreciate the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. It'll be the Bible that I will use when I go around and talk to others. But I also want to continue to urge participation, a partnership together on behalf of the city, working together with me on this, because this is really important for me to be able to see this impact happen, and our young, adults and our youth in high school, because what I've learned, and that's why Bloomberg did this, what I've learned is this is a long game. Our ideas are our ideas for now. Once we retire, they have to continue it. And that's why we need to continue to maintain the momentum, not just for us, but for our future. They're going to have to carry the baton. And so that's why that grant is incredibly important to me, to be able to see our community be invested and our youth be invested in carrying out what we see is happening. We're like, when you see that movie, Greenland Melted, all the history, and now today we're learning from that was, gathered in World War II, and what we're learning today from that experience, and what we can do to make, tomorrow a better day for our future. So that's one of the reasons why I'm bringing the filming in here, and our youth are being recruited to participate and get our high school students involved, and all of our local electeds, because working with Yolo County and everybody else in our region is going to help make an impact and a change. I'm really looking forward to seeing what I can do to partner with you. And I have to say, when I saw what you did out in Kinders Go to College, and you had your booth out there, and all the little things you had going on with the kids was really cool. I took a ton of pictures and posted them, but they were pretty cool. I really liked how you were able to connect with all the little kindergartners and the high school youth who were accompanying them. We need more of that, and all over the city. And whatever we can do to partner with you to hold events, because I think, us partnering with you is a big part of making this successful, not just you doing it alone, but you also getting the resources that you need to make this happen.
Yeah, so a couple things. I just got green-lighted for a dedicated outreach and enforcement officer, because I believe this stuff needs to hit the pavement. So that person is going to be dedicated to addressing what a lot of you have brought up, which is the cultural change. So, police and fire, they have their sunglasses, they have cool cars, they go to the event. And so, I don't have a fire truck, but, we're going to have cool stickers. We're going to frame this in a way that makes it positive and exciting. And that is going to be one of the ways we want to make a cultural change. I'm also seeking funding for it, a dedicated climate action fund in the supplemental budget. So if you are offering funds, I will gladly take those. But we know that this is larger than just the city council's pocket. So we're going to continue to seek grants throughout the life of the climate action.
And happy to sit with you to go over where you need those grants and to try to track those down for you. Because I think that the state does have that, but I also was participating in another Bloomberg, 3-hour-long, Zoom meeting about ideas, grant funding, partnerships, things like that, from 5:30 this morning. It was pretty insightful. I don't know if it was taped, and I can pass it along to you, but it was pretty insightful, and we're getting ready for the next COP, in Brazil. I have to tell you, going to those and seeing what is going on in other countries is eye-opening experience, and just so many ideas. It really gives you a lot of that momentum and energy, especially what we need here, just to inject that momentum here. But earlier this week, the California Green Technology Initiative was launched here in our city. And so thank you for, providing I don't know who's doing it, the Computer for Kids program. I think that, giving the computers and refurbishing those, great program. And I'm hoping that they apply. I think they're interested in applying for the Bloomberg grant. And there are just, I think, so many other initiatives that we're doing that we can continue to expand on and, make a huge impact here that we're seeing. And the hotspot at the libraries, it gets people out of their homes into a cool library, and to be able to have access to the internet. And whatever we can do to partner with our other partners here, the library and the county. So if we, during this taping, if we can come up with initiatives that we can launch during that filming, which is my target date for that is November 4th. Love to partner with you on that.
You were speaking and you mentioned Kinder's College, talked about the children and the youth, and it's funny, I just wanted to say on that note, the last 10 years I've had this video and our whole family has memorized this freaking song because we were haunted by a 3-year-old who sang it.
It's easy to do when you go shopping. Take a bag or two, and to all packages, say no thank you. Reduce 3 use, recycle 2. Come on, everyone, it's easy to do
The song
when you're too big.
goes on about recycling your toys and whatnot, and that's my then 3-year-old who learned a recycle song about sustainability. And we all know the song because it got recycled in our house, no pun intended. And he's 13 now, and I think about that just being the pipeline to so many different changes in different households, right? Because we get our kids excited, then it's that into and it's infectious. So thank you for what you do. And sorry, Madam Mayor, I didn't mean to pivot. I just say we're all tired, and sometimes we just need a little pick me up at the end of the day to say we're alive, we're hearing everybody, and thank you.
So yes, and thank you. I did want to say that if you do want to partner with California Breathe on getting some of these outreach projects done, they do have contact with several youth who participated in the first round in the micro grant projects. And it's not just that we established the micro grants and they used it and spent it. It was to build a bench of youth who are interested in doing this in our future. So we had a youth climate advisory board led by Jasmine Garcia, who was, I think all of us saw her as an applicant in our commission. We had youth-led climate education programs that were implemented, youth climate hackathons that were implemented, youth-led climate surveys and research here in our city, youth-designed public art and awareness campaigns, and the list, tree plantings, list goes on with what our youth have already accomplished. And it would be just, I think, really cool to partner with these youth who are invested in this already in our community.
So just to say, Jasmine is, I've met with her, and she's the one who's working on the home energy audit kit. And we'll be featuring her in our upcoming environmental survey.
That's
So,
awesome. That's great.
It's a great.
Great, thank you so much. And my goodness, who's going to have the honor of adopting this report?
Early moves.
Second. Right. And Madam Clerk, Councilmember Early moved and Councilmember Alcala seconded. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Alcala.
Aye.
Councilmember Early.
Aye.
Councilmember Roscoe.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sulpicio Hall.
Aye.
Mayor Guerrero.
Aye. So excited. Thank you. Next, I think we have our general administration function part due. Do we have any reports from council assignments?
I do.
Yes, Councilmember
Okay.
Early.
We had SACOG last week, and we actually did a few things that I think are important just to lift up. We adopted and released a draft 2025 blueprint and environmental impact report, and so that seems very fitting based on the presentation we just took and adopted ourselves. We adopted the mobility zones that SACOG has laid out, including there were 10 zones for phase 1, and one of those zones, mobility zones, actually were in West Sacramento. And so that was, once again, important. And then we took a workshop on on-demand microtransit. Almost positive this is recorded and posted, and that might be of interest to us. They did touch on VIA. Separate from that, also last week, had Yolo Transportation District. We took the first budget hearing of our 3 series hearings, and that was, again, really educational. I don't know if anyone had an opportunity to log on. Once again, that one is also recorded. We had a chance to hear from both SACOG, a UC Davis researcher, as well as a representative from the federal level on different funding streams. And then last, and I'm sure Madam Mayor, you will discuss this as well, but I want to say last Thursday, we actually had a hearing in here that Congresswoman Matsui, as well as Congressman Thompson, did a panel really lifting up what is happening with the current bill that came out of the House and cuts that will impact our region, let alone the entire country. And so I thought that was a really educational hearing in which our local congressional leaders were trying to really highlight and boil down what do these cuts actually mean for us locally. And so I thought that was, again, not only educational, but also inspiring to, once again, get out there and to advocate and to make sure that everyone really understands what's going to happen if this bill passes.
Any other? Yes, go ahead.
On May 28th, 2025, Sacramento Area Sewer District met. We received a public comment regarding sewer and affordable homes from Robin Davis. We announced that, or I guess our district engineer announced, introduced the district management members and administrative services manager and organizational development manager to the crew, and then also we received an application on the for the human resource position, and they held a public hearing on the status of vacancies, and also finally received the SASD budget, approved the operating budget and the cap.
This last week, joined in the launch of the California Green Technology Initiative, and it is in partnership with the California Emergency Technology Fund and the Local Government Best Practices Learning Network, which is providing a grant that are using to provide hotspots to our library. And SUNY McPeak was present along with members from the governor's office. Just getting this incredible launch done so that we can continue to do what we can to reduce e-waste and expand affordable internet services throughout the city, starting off with the hotspot. But we're, implementing broadband with Trish through Valley Vision, and Evan, who was present doing the presentation. And yes, Congresswoman Matsui and Thompson present with the panelists. The one that struck me the most was the IHSS recipient who talked about she's disabled, very, very physically disabled, and her illness is so severe that without access to immediate medical care, it's a life-death situation. And unfortunately, it's people like this, panelist who was here, who will not likely be eligible for Medi-Cal anymore. These are our constituents. These are Yolo County people. And just the cuts to Medi-Cal, but also the onerous impact on CalFresh programs. The school lunch programs will be eliminated. And that's what our kids rely on during lunch, just lunch and summer meals. And just, I think, all across the board, devastating cuts, which are going to hit, I think, our community. And I take a look at, I think, the Brighton Broderick community the most. They're the ones that qualify for most of those services. And I think we have to pay close attention and do what we can as a city and county to partner, and that's going to be another component of my State of the City tomorrow. Councilmember Alcala, do you have a question?
No, Mayor, I was just going to comment. I'm very thankful that we have Three Sisters Gardens that also help supplement, for families. We're fortunate.
Yes, I will say our food mobile truck and our food banks have been very helpful. We need to maintain those. So, Council calendar?
Excuse me. Good evening. Just a couple of reminders that we have the State of the City tomorrow, the luncheon from 11 to 1 in the Galleria. And then next week we have a lot of fire activities. We've got the Fire Academy graduation at the Crest Theater. That's on Thursday the 12th at 6 p.m. And then the next day we have the Youth Fire Academy graduation luncheon at Station 45. And then later that day on Friday, we have the third annual West Sac Juneteenth celebration at Bridgeway Lakes Parks. And that's at 5:30. Thank you.
City Attorney report. City Manager.
Yeah, just a couple of personal updates tonight. The first one, I gave you a preview of this, I believe, last week in an email. It's official now. We today introduced Rebecca Scott as our new Director of Public Works Operations and Maintenance to the staff at the Courtyard at 7 a.m. this morning. We were there to do that introduction. We're really excited that she's joining our team. She's coming to us from the Citrus Heights Water District as the Operations Director over there. She's been there for quite a while, but also has previous experience in local government and city government. She will be starting with us on July 14th. That's just because of noticing and our pay periods and some vacation in between. Looking forward to introducing her to the council at that council meeting on the 18th, I think it is, or the 16th that week. So you'll meet her very soon. And then the other one, and I just want to take a quick moment. I know she's here in the other room here, but Ariana has been doing a great job being the interim director of Public Works O&M. Jay Chahal, who has been the interim director. You saw him speak at the Sycamore Overpass grand opening the other day. Has also been doing great in that interim role. So things have been going really smooth. But really looking forward to getting everyone into their roles, and especially Rebecca starting. The other one, he's here actually. So we have a new planning manager, Tristan Osborne. I wanted to make sure you had a chance to say hi to him. He comes to us from the city of Modesto, has a long career in various roles in planning and redevelopment, even remembers the days of redevelopment. So we immediately connected on that. So he's overseeing the planning division. You'll see a lot of him at these council meetings, and really happy that he's on board with the city. So that's my report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much. City Attorney report.
Nothing to report.
Okay, staff direction from city council members. Right, no future agenda item requests, so I'll accept.
Mayor,
Oh,
I'm
yes.
sorry. I'd like to adjourn in memory of my Aunt Gracie. Her name is, she passed away a week and a half ago. Her name was Graciela Aurora Salinas Pfeffer. She was a longtime resident of West Sacramento since 1966. She was also the choir leader at Holy Cross, and she taught me how to twist, introduced me to Elvis, the Beatles, and the Supremes, and she made my first folkloric debut.
Aw, sorry to hear
Thank
that. And that, you made a motion, and a second?
Early second.
Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Acala?
Aye.
Councilmember Early?
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco? Mayor Pro Tem Sulpicio Hall?
Aye.
Mayor Guerrero?
Aye, we're now adjourned.